Go ahead and
Eventually, but that's not on the agenda for tonight. Unless, I don't know, I guess if you want to, hey, Tracy, hang on a second. Are we doing non-agenda public?
Always.
Of course.
Okay.
Hey, can you mute though when you're done talking?
Sure. Are we doing non-agenda public comment?
Of course.
Okay, good. Julie wants to say something. So when it comes up, I'll let her speak.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Andrea, I made you, I signed you as the host, okay?
Thank you. I see that now.
Great. I'm going to still try to work out this live streaming issue while we start.
Hey guys, welcome. Thank you all for being here right at 6 p.m. We're going to get started. We are just trying to get the Facebook live stream up and running. In the meantime, I guess, Tracy, will you take roll and see if we have a quorum?
Yeah, so the only people I don't know if they're here yet is Andrew, Jane, Tom, Jenna, Kevin.
I'm here.
Oh, there's Kevin. Kevin's here. And Newman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 11 people. Andrea, so we have a quorum, right? Yeah. Andrea,
okay. And, before we get started, anyone who is seeking to make a non-agenda public comment, please do put your name into the chat box indicating such a thing so I can go through everyone. Thank you. That'll just facilitate the meeting a little bit easier. So Tracy, did you say we have a quorum?
Yeah, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. And Anthony, how is Facebook Live going?
Not yet. Sorry, I'm still working on it though.
No, it's okay. I think what we're really looking for is that, during the STVR. So I think we're going to push forward here since we have a long meeting. Wonderful.
Andrea, one second. Hey, Andrea, 1 second. Bill's on Facebook right now, and he says that it's being hosted by Kevin. So maybe Kevin has to do something.
Okay. Well, why don't Anthony and Kevin, they can chat about that, I think, privately in the private chat, so we can just continue to move forward with the meeting. Thank you, Tracy. Okay. Do I have any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
On motion.
Thank you.
This is George. I'll second.
Anyone opposed? Okay, awesome. Do I have any changes to, so the agenda is adopted without opposition. Do I have any changes to the minutes from last month's meeting? Virginia? No, okay. Just sure. There's been so many recently.
George had one minor edit. It wasn't substantial. It was just like a the to a they. So I made that change already. I don't know if anybody else has anything else.
Okay.
If not, I'll motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have any opposition to the approval of the minutes?
No
this is
opposition
Derek. I'm
for me.
going to abstain.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, cool. And with that, let me see who who's logged in so far from our. Okay, cool. So we have Teddy and Miller. I don't see Michaela. Oh, no, I see Michaela. Okay, cool. So we're going to start with Teddy, Teddy, and then we'll go with Michaela, and then we will go Miller. If that's all right with everyone. Teddy, you have the floor.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Lots going on with office. I'll keep it pretty brief. If everyone could mute themselves to turn on, I'm getting a lot of feedback. In terms of issues that planning board has been involved with, we continue to work with you guys on are really traffic concerns that we've seen in the last several weeks. We've gotten emails about traffic issues along Sunset Cliffs Boulevard and near Voltaire. So we've seen kind of a spike in emails to us asking us to look at traffic studies and possible left turn arrows as you come into Ocean Beach. This is something we're looking into. I don't have a timeline right now on how quickly we can get something like that put through, but we are looking at it. The other issue is the timed parking that the town council has been kind of advocating for and gotten some community response on. This would be for the Ocean Beach Dog Beach parking lots, the lifeguard station, and the OB Pier parking lot. Really what the issue is trying to create more access for folks, as there's sometimes there's people who park there all day and they take up space, and kind of prevent other folks from coming in and enjoying the beach as well. So we are looking at what a timed parking situation would look like. That would require some action by the Coastal Commission too, but we think we have potential to do something there. So we're looking at that, and we'll likely need a signal of support or actually an approval from the planning board. So we'll be talking with you all about that. I've already spoken to Andrea about it, and we'll be looking over for the next month or two. It would possibly require a traffic study as well. So we are in talks with the department to get that going, and we think it'll be a good victory for OB. Lastly, the other issue that has come up mostly recently has been the issue with Wednesday evening crowds. We're looking at that. It's become a bit of a spike in emails, but the OB Town Council did submit a letter to us wanting us to look into what the options were. There's a range of issues that are encompassed within the Wednesday evening crowd. It kind of is multifaceted. So when our office looks at it, we have to kind of parse things out and see what solutions there might be to each individual problem. Some of it has to do with trash gathering due to the increase in crowds. Some of it has to do with loud music that's coming up at the Veterans Plaza. And some of it has to do with non-permitted vendors. So we're looking at these issues kind of at once, but kind of looking at them separately since they would require different solutions. But just wanted to give you a heads up in case you all, obviously today is Wednesday, so maybe seeing some of that activity again tonight. The good news is that San Diego PD has responded and knows that there's complaints about the noise, which is something they can enforce. Some of the other trickier issues like mask wearing and social distancing are a bit trickier to enforce since there's no clear codified law on them. We continue to implore the mayor and the county to enforce social distancing and mask wearing, something the council member speaks about quite regularly. We'll continue to do that and also look at other options to try to quell some of the crowds on Wednesday evenings and also some of the non-permitted activity that happens on Wednesday and sometimes throughout the week too. We know it's an issue, and so we're looking at that. Other than that, there are several other items going through council. I won't take too much time. I'm happy to answer questions as always, and if I can't get an answer for you now, happy to follow up later.
Hi, Teddy. I have something if anybody else, does anybody else have anything? Because I just wanted to speak on, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy.
After you're
I
done,
saw-
Tracy, I'd like to speak on something.
Okay, I saw Andrea's mouth moving, but I don't know what she's saying. You're muted.
Right, I forget it. If everyone could just raise their hands after Tracy, and then I'll just go down the line.
Cool, thanks. So, Teddy, I just wanted to say thank you for having Jen address that letter so quickly. Typically, you know, when people complain about something, it kind of takes forever for council to even address the complaints. So I appreciate that. But I just wanted to point out that the Facebook post that she made seemed a little not connected to what the community is actually with OBMA. I mean, it almost seemed like she was kind of blaming OBMA and the farmers market for the scenario that we have going on down there. And I would like you to take back this information that it is not OBMA's fault that that's happening, and the farmers market is not to blame for any of the problems that are going on at Veterans Square. It is substantially just unlicensed vendors and performers and people who have probably no insurance to cover injuries to themselves or others. And, you know, you're looking at a huge lawsuit here if we don't figure out some way to wrangle what's going on down there. So anyways, I just wanted to thank council member's office for responding so quickly, but I think, as you said, you're kind of trying to parse out the different levels of complaints. And I really think it's the unlicensed vendors and the street performers that are causing the problems and not OBMA. So that's all I just needed to
I
say.
definitely appreciate that. And I think that we agree that it's not one single source of where the blame falls. I think that it would be silly not to recognize the farmers market as having some contribution to that crowd drawing on Wednesdays, but definitely two separate events happening. There's a permitted event and a non-permitted gathering. And so, you know, I think the council member was trying to look at those issues at once, even though they're separate and have different approaches to solving. But definitely agree. And we've chatted with the OBMA. I think there is room there to you know, have them be a part of the discussion. They're definitely a source of the crowd on Wednesdays, but they end at 8 p.m. and then the crowd stays until well after that. But it is a chicken and the egg thing. And so we are kind of trying to parse those things out and see where we can have some actual solutions done. And what that looks like is going to take a little bit of compromise from everyone, but we're hoping that we can address it so that it works out for everyone.
Thank you, Teddy. I'm just going to jump in, sorry, and then we'll get right to you, Derek. Do you think passing a street vending ordinance would help at all, or is there still no real will at the council level to move forward with that?
I think that originally, so we haven't really had this problem until like the last month or so because the market was closed for the majority of the year. And now that the market's opened up, the crowds are back. And so I think that's the connection there. But, you know, the vendors ordinance conversation was something that was getting a little bit of momentum late last year and then hit the brakes as soon as the pandemic hit. It's something we're looking at again. To be frank, there was a draft kind of flying around of the vendors ordinance that we saw that a lot of other council members had issue with. And that makes sense. I think that the issue that happens in Ocean Beach is unique to the city and isn't something that we really see in other places as specific to how OB is. And so I think that a blanket ordinance for the city does create a little bit of a cookie cutter that doesn't really fit the mold of each community. And so we are looking at ways to figure out what would it look like for OB. The original state legislation, it makes it clear what the law is today. The city can pursue an ordinance, and there are options to look at what that would look like around a farmer's market specifically. That way we're really tailoring it to what the problem is and not capturing folks who are trying to make a living during a pandemic. So there is some sensitivity there, but yes, we are looking at that conversation as things are opening up again.
Great, thank you, Teddy. I'm gonna let Derek speak now, and then Craig, you'll be after Derek.
Hey, Teddy, this is Derek Dudek. First of all, I want to say, thank you for the time and comprehensive details you give to the OB Planning Board. I know you got a lot going on, so thanks for that, first of all. And then regarding traffic concerns on Voltaire and Sunset Cliffs Boulevard, that's my corner. I've been here for 7 years, so I can see firsthand. It's pretty much a weekly occurrence that we've got an incident out there, whether it's somebody hitting parked cars or a pedestrian or another vehicle. I know recently we had a hit and run involving a motorcycle where you hit a pedestrian and dropped his passenger. We also had a police car that hit the median. So something's got to be done there. It seems to me that a lot of the traffic is post-sunset. People are coming from the cliffs and they're coming from the beaches and they're coming from Newport, whether it's Ubers or people who've been drinking or not. Left turn arrows and whatnot seem to be a good immediately available solution. I was wondering also if a stop sign along that way is being considered, and then also a more radical approach. A lot of that traffic backs its way up all the way to the 8 along the corridor along Dusty Roads Park there. And there's a lot of room to widen that road out there where homeless people are sort of encamped at the moment. Would it be feasible to have a traffic study of making one-way access from the 8 area all the way to Newport with a corresponding return to the 8 along the Ebers Street, making that one-way going back to the north? You're just wondering if more radical plans like that are being considered. I was thinking of drawing up some things myself and just not to take up any more time right now because I know we got a lot of things. Is that something that I could discuss with you further, or are you considering plans of that nature? Thank you.
Hey, Derek, I'd be happy to chat with you more. I have heard conversations about redoing that entire intersection. It's kind of a cluster as you enter the 8. Some of it would require state and Caltrans cooperation. So it's kind of, it's somewhat in the city jurisdiction, but also would require some collaboration with the state since it is a highway area. But it is something that we've looked at. We haven't gotten into, that's obviously something that would be a much longer term project similar to the Mission Bay Bridge, and timelines can run quite long with a project like that. We are, you know, we've heard discussions of it, but I'd be happy to connect with you and figure out how we could revive that discussion. In terms of a left turn arrow, those are things we're looking at more quickly, whether that would create, necessitate a traffic study. Is something we're getting info on, and we'll be looking at the stop sign issue. I think the stop signs would be something that the planning board could look at through its traffic committee, and we would obviously seek approval there. I know that the board has looked at some streets along Sunset Cliffs to install stop signs. So yeah, we're definitely going to look at that. And
or pedestrian activated crossings even.
Yeah, it can be dangerous along Sunset Cliffs. So yeah, we're looking at it, and I'll be following up with Andrea to figure out how we can get approval for something like that.
Okay, thank you. I'll look forward to talking more about it another time.
Thank you, but I'm glad. So go back to your friend. That's so nice that you're taking this kid, because right now he's probably bigger than sin, right? I mean, nobody.
You hear me? Am I unmuted?
I can hear you, Craig.
Okay, I want to refocus on the Veterans Plaza thing. It's not the merchants' problem, nor does it have anything to do with the farmers market. Farmers market is an entire block east. It starts at Bacon Street. The problem is basically a super spreading event is being allowed to happen down there. Every Wednesday night. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and I find any delays to be completely incomprehensible and completely inappropriate. And I think it needs exigent action. And I understand there's multiple levels of jurisdictions involved, but Councilmember Campbell represents our district, and we've got a public health crisis in real time going on. And while I don't want to downplay things like traffic patterns at intersections, all of those things have long timelines. But what's going on Wednesday nights and other nights down there, it's completely unacceptable in the middle of a infectious disease pandemic. And somebody's got to step up and do something about it. So there's my 2 cents on that.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. I'm going to hop to Chris. And then we're going to move on to Michaela. I said Michaela, right? And right, go.
Thanks, Andrea. And I'm still hearing a lot of background noise, so I don't know if someone else has their device unmuted, but my comment is on the short-term vacation rental and the proposed ordinance. And I know we have it later on our agenda today to discuss. I'm very disappointed in the process that took place. If you might recall, the last meeting we received the update that an ordinance or a proposed ordinance was being promoted in the media, and for many months leading up to that, I have asked every meeting, Teddy, where are we at with this, and we received some very vague answers. And in my strong opinion, it's the absolutely incorrect way to go about engaging specifically planning boards like ours. But in any effort, when you have multiple parties that you need to bring together, I don't understand what occurred. And again, it's on our agenda, and I understand that we do have a subcommittee that's been in discussion on this topic, at least as of the last month. But I've never seen anything before like that, where we were made aware of this announcement on the day of the meeting when there had been plenty of opportunity to engage us previous to that. And I say that having led many engagement efforts with multiple stakeholders for policy and other planning purposes, and I'm blown away. And I hope that we can move forward and find some sort of resolution. But I would welcome any response to help me understand as a planning board member, how did that occur, and why were we not at least briefed, if not engaged,
Right,
during
Jen,
the process?
Jen will be here.
Yeah.
We do want to keep our content focused during that discussion period on the policy. So I do appreciate you getting this out now, but Jen will be here.
I'm sorry, Chris. I failed to mention at the beginning that I normally, as you know, would address the STVR, but I thought the board may have gotten the word that the council member will be joining for that item later in the agenda. So I wanted to keep my comments pretty general to the ongoing events and what pertains really to the planning board. But yeah, she'll be on later and can discuss that. But just to kind of address it quickly, it's something that isn't set in stone and the ordinance isn't developed at all. It's something that an agreement occurred between two major stakeholders in that space. And an ordinance is still forthcoming, and planning board has been really kind of engaged with us much more than a lot of other communities in terms of what they'd like to see. And we've taken all of that into account, especially Andrea and Kevin. We've had conversations with the council member, but definitely understand the confusion there, and hope we can clear that up. There's still a long way to go.
Confusion. I'm sorry, and I won't belabor the point. I did not know that the council member was joining us for that agenda item, so we'll look forward to a lengthy discussion. And obviously, my comment was more about the months preceding the announcement at the last meeting, and so not so much specifically about why didn't we receive more of an update at this meeting. But in any case, I do look forward to the conversation we're about to have tonight, and we'll just go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Michaela, you're up from State Assembly Member Todd Gloria's office.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Michaela from Assembly Member Todd Gloria's office. I'll try to be brief as I can. I'm going to start with DMV updates for you and your neighbors. If you're over the age of 70, you have a year extension if your license is expiring in 2020. So there's no need to rush to the DMV. However, if you are under 70 years old and your license is expiring between March and December of this year, you will need to try to renew online. If you have any issues renewing online, the suggestion is to go ahead and complete the Real ID application. And then, although the DMV is not taking new appointments, if capacity allows, they will accept Real ID applicants. So wanted to mention that. The legislative timeline is coming up really fast. The state constitution, states that all legislation must be passed by August 31st. And given COVID and a couple of outbreaks that happened last month, committees are trying to meet as soon as possible to get through several bills, but bills have been limited in terms of how many each house is going to pass. I wanted to mention to Andrea, because I know she's been following the Senate housing bills that are going through the Assembly. We did think they were going to go through the Assembly Housing Committee. Most of them are actually going through the local government committee. So what that means for San Diego perspective, most of the bills except for SB 1085 will not be voted on by the Assembly member until the Assembly floor. So that again, the deadline would be sometime this month. I did receive the press release and the suggestions, and I think all the planning groups are kind of set on those. I know Miller is going to be touching on the Senate housing bills during his report. Lastly, just want to mention one of the Assembly bills that we do hope to pass during this legislative year is our bill to help the facilitation of the NAVWAR site between the Navy and Sandag. And that is AB 2731. So we do hope that will pass. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to follow that. Or I know Miller is going to have some state updates as well.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything for Michaela? You can use the raise your hand function. Okay, great, Michaela. Thank you so much for those specific bill updates. Miller, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Hey folks, Miller with Senator Atkins' office. Good to see everyone over Zoom. I wanted to give a very brief overview of the housing package to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about. So these bills are meant to streamline the process for property owners to help increase affordable housing and respond to our housing shortage so our kids and grandkids can stay in San Diego. There's a lot here. I'm not an expert. I can attempt to answer questions or get them answered by colleagues. Michaela talked a bit about the deadlines and the timeline. So feel free to send either or both of us any comments or thoughts you have about the bills. Here's my quick overview. So Senate Bill 899 allows affordable housing on land owned by religious institutions and independent nonprofit colleges. Senate Bill 902 allows local governments to pass a zoning ordinance for up to 10 units without triggering CEQA in areas that are transit-rich, jobs-rich, and urban fill, and that's entirely opt-in on the local government's part. Senate Bill 995 by Senator Atkins extends the AB 900 process for environmental leadership development projects. So it lowers the dollar threshold from $100 million in investment to $15 million and 15% affordable housing. Senate Bill 1085 enhances the density bonus law by increasing the number of incentives provided to developers in exchange for providing more affordable units. And Senate Bill 1120 by Senator Atkins adds to the ADU law, creating more lot splits, additional ADUs, but they can't be used for short-term vacation rentals because the minimum stay is 30 days. So there's some more local control on that. Senate Bill 1385 allows residential development on land zoned for commercial, office, and retail by making housing an eligible use on those sites. And last one, a little off topic, but one I like to include is Senate Bill 1410, which it's an optional agreement between the state, landlords, and tenants to avoid evictions and foreclosures. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, tax credits can be given in the amount of the missed rent from the state to the landlord, and then tenants pay back the rent to the state over 10 years, interest-free, and beginning 2024. And it can be forgiven or reduced based on their median income. So I know that was a lot, so feel free to ask questions or email me after. I'll add my email in the chat box. Last couple of things is just there's a $100 billion economic recovery fund plan as part of the budget, which would establish through prepaid future tax vouchers this fund and providing an economic stimulus for our state. Finally, as Michaela was saying, in terms of DMV issues or unemployment issues, we're still always here to help. So feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Miller. Does anyone have any questions for Miller? And just to reiterate, those bills he was talking about are now moving through the state assemblies. So if you want any more information, please do reach out to Miller. But if you want to make comments, give those to Michaela. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone who has any questions. Oh. Nope. Okay, we are going to move into non-agenda public comment. So I think I have Julie Klein first, if she's ready. And then I have Sarah Davis as well. And I am going to be enforcing the 2-minute rule. If you too would like to speak during non-agenda public comment, can you just drop it in the chat? Thank you. But Julie, Craig, can you let Julie know? Okay. Is Sarah ready then to go while Julie gets in the room?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Sarah Davis. I am a candidate for state assembly in the 78th district, so that does cover the OB area up and down the coast. I came by and saw you all in person in the winter, and it seems like an entire lifetime ago. And so it is good to see you all back in virtual form. My background is in healthcare, so I live now in Hillcrest. I've lived in San Diego my whole life, and I work in women's healthcare. I've also owned several small businesses, and I'm running to bring my experience in healthcare and small business up to Sacramento. My priority is healthcare for all Californians, true universal healthcare. And as much as I was passionate about that before we came into a global pandemic, I am, tenfold more passionate about it now. We would be in a better position if everyone in our state had already had adequate health care. So I'm definitely still on board with that, still pushing hard for that. Also passionate about truly affordable housing, but no giveaways to private developers, just trying to build luxury housing and make sure that we are dealing with the climate crisis head on. My campaign advanced through the primary. So since I saw you last, we did make it through the primary, and we're now phone banking and text banking. We would love anyone to contact us or get involved if you want to be part of a grassroots campaign. We are running a period supplies drive right now. My background in women's healthcare, I'm totally aware of how important period supplies are, and especially with folks missing rents, unemployed, losing the $600 a week additional unemployment, and teens not going back to high schools and middle schools where a lot of them are getting their period supplies. This is an extra need right now. So you can find that on my website if anyone wants to contribute, drop off supplies, or buy supplies. It all goes to the San Diego Food Bank that has a distribution program. And again, my name is Sarah Davis. Website is votesarahdavis.com, and it looks like my time.
Thank you. Yeah, right
you.
on time. Please do drop your website info into the chat, and so that one can have it. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, hope you hang around. Is Julie ready? Otherwise, I have Nancy Kelly. Okay, Nancy.
Sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. Hi, I just wanted to remind everyone that the San Diego Gas and Electric franchise is ending, and tomorrow there is a special city council meeting, and one of the items is a discussion of the franchise, the upcoming franchise, utility franchise. So it will affect all of us into the future, and just it, there will be public comment available, or you can write your comment in prior to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh, Nancy, sorry. I was looking at the last comment Sarah just made. Okay, great, wonderful. I can't see Craig anywhere. Does anyone else see Craig? Oh, his camera's off. Craig, is Julie there?
She decided to withdraw her comment.
Great. Okay, wonderful. We are going to move on then, unless anyone else has public comment. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Stephen Bliss. Stephen, are you there? Anthony, can you mute Craig? I think he's going. You took away my meeting privileges. Okay. Okay. Stephen? Let me see. I think he told me he was going to sign in by phone. Okay. Stephen, are you there? One more call. I can put it at the end of the next agenda item, if everyone's okay with that then. I don't know where he would be. We literally spoke on the phone earlier today. All right.
Andrea,
Yes.
can I get the treasurer's report out of the way? Just,
Do you plan on not being here later? You can email me so we can do it at the end still.
I may not be here at the end, I'm not sure.
Okay, why don't you just email that to me? Okay, we're going to, this is so unfortunate, I have the PowerPoint presentation, it's too bad. Okay, we are going to move on then, because we just have a lot to get through in this meeting, and we can circle back to Stephen if he manages to log on here. We're not ahead of schedule, are we? Yeah, no, we're right on time. Okay, cool. So then I want to keep right on time. So we're going to move on down to action item number 1 then. Unless anyone has objections to that, to possibly moving the West Point Loma, either tabling it for the end of the meeting or tabling it for next month. Do you have any objections? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, if he signs on, I definitely want to hear about this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, well, I do too. Okay, so I'm going to put up the text of Jennifer Campbell's, actually, because she's not supposed to be here until 7. So do we think, Tracy, do we think we can, or Nicole, I should be asking Nicole, do we think we can get through the parks in 30 minutes, and then when Jen logs on, we can switch over to STVRs? At my wrist.
Sure thing. I'm okay with that. I think if we're going to be discussing the Spray Street Park improvements, I'd like to hear from Tracy on that, because it sounds like, or it looked like she had a really good plan for moving forward with that discussion. So Tracy, are you able to kind of present what you showed us at the Parks Subcommittee?
Yeah, and Andrea, if you want to share your screen, and I can go ahead and just talk about
I'll
it.
just pull up the park plan that I posted on the website.
Yeah, I think that would be fine. And I'll just read. It's weird to like skip ahead. Okay, so the Parks Ad Hoc Committee, we're looking at a number of the parks in Ocean Beach, and one of the parks that we wanted to take a look at, see if we could improve upon the park, was the Spray Street Aug Beach Park. As most of you know, that park area is 100% grass, surrounded by residences and parking lot. And there really isn't a lot there to offer the community. So what I did was I kind of, because I'm there a lot and I'm walking my dog there a lot, I kind of thought, well, what kind of things could we do to make this park a little bit better for the community, and also give it a place for visitors to go as well, not, be spread out and the whole deal. So I went ahead and created kind of this map, or this floor plan of some ideas that I had. And I will just read the motion that the Parks Ad Hoc motioned. The motion to adopt this drawing as a conceptual plan to better utilize the existing park space and make it more community and visitor friendly. Suggest incorporation of 6 cycle track stations, designated picnic area with more picnic tables, designated play/activity areas, wayfinding signs, community garden or pollination garden, and public art in multiple places. In addition, incorporate an overhead barrier to prevent large vehicles from entering the park that may incorporate wayfinding and or public art. So, you know, like I said, everybody is familiar with Spray Street and Dog Beach. It's an awkward space. It's not conducive to large sporting activities. I am there almost every day, and I rarely see anybody playing sports. If there is anybody doing any activity, it's usually small scale, like bocce ball or tossing a frisbee. Lately, because of the COVID closures of gyms, there's been some very small yoga groups there, but they're certainly not utilizing the entire park space. We also talked about the fact that my initial idea was to incorporate a children's area or a children's playground area, but the consensus among the committee was that there are already multiple children's playgrounds in the area at Robb Field, at there's going to be one hopefully at Saratoga Park, there's one over at the rec center, you know, so they kind of felt like, we all kind of felt like that was already enough, and that it would be better for this part of the community to have more adult playground area. So that's why I kind of sketched out this cycle, or this not cycle track, I keep calling it a cycle track because I got parking on my mind, circuit track. We could incorporate, you know, 6 different circuit track activities. The gray area would be replaced with like a permeable surface that would not be water intensive. And then, you know, if we could do 6 circuit tracks, that would be great. If we could do more, that would be even better. The parks plan, the community Play Everywhere Parks plan gives 1 point for each 3 circuit track, circuit fitness elements. So this would give us an additional 2 points to add to our points system. And I mean, I would love to see more, but if we don't really have the space for it, then the areas around the fitness gym things could also be used as like a free workout station or a free workout place. If there's enough room, you know, somebody can go over and do sit-ups or push-ups or whatever. I'd like to suggest that we leave the triangular grass area in front of the hotel open for free activity and free, you know, larger group kinds of activity, because it is a pretty large area. And I think that, you know, you could feasibly play a small little game of, you know, touch football or whatever over there. And I think that it's isolated enough as well, so you could have kids over there and you're not going to have your kids like running out into the street and stuff. So I think that's a really great area for that. The place that I said art, I think we could put some public art there. There's like this little part that juts out that is right at the end there. And I think that that would be a great area that could be utilized for public art. And then the designated picnic area, right now in the entire park, there are maybe 5, I think there's either 4 or 5 picnic tables, and they're spread out in such an awkward way that the only 2 that ever get utilized are the ones over by the comfort station. And the other 2 are over where I want to put the fitness track, and nobody is ever there. So I felt like if we could consolidate and make a designated picnic area, we could also consolidate the trash, and it would be a great place for people to hang out with their families. You know, they go to the beach, and then maybe, you know, they don't want to eat in the sand, so they would go over to the designated picnic area, eat, and then maybe go back and play in the sand. So that area is actually closer to the beach. It's closer to the comfort station and the showers. It also has a great view of the beach, and it also has a good view of both of the volleyball courts that we have. So it just seems like a better place to put like a designated picnic area. And then there's a couple other places that I had suggested maybe we could incorporate some level of public art. The poured rubber surface underneath the adult fitness area could be a very creative space. And also, I've seen some really great gazebos that are shade, they give shade, but they're not going to prevent somebody from getting rained on. So they're not like perfect shelters. But I've seen some really amazing things happening with gazebos that have artistic elements that when the sun shines through them, they create like beautiful light displays on the ground. So there are, you know, possibilities for shade that could also be utilized as public art.
Tracy, I do want to leave some time for discussion.
Okay, and then the 2 wayfinding signs, we actually get points if we have wayfinding signs. So I figured we should probably install something at the beginning of the park and something at the end of the park, because I can't even tell you how many times I've had people go, "Where's Dog Beach?" And it's like right around the corner, right? So, you know, there's elements on this plan that I don't think it's departing too far from what we have now, but I think it would just tighten up the park and it would be a great upgrade to the park. So I think that's it.
Great, thank you. Nicole, do you want to jump in here and give any comments, or anyone else from the Parks Committee, Anthony, before I move on to the other board members?
Can you hear me? Thanks, Andrea. I don't think I have anything to add other than the fact that this is a currently kind of an underutilized space that I think could really be just utilized better for the better benefit of the surrounding community. I think Tracy did a great job with putting together a proposal, and I'd like to move it forward to the board to talk with Parks and Rec about.
Great, thank you. Do I have any board comments? Can you use the utilize the raise or the comment? Because it's hard for me to see you all right there when I'm sharing my screen.
No comment.
Looks like a nice plan to me. This is George.
Thanks, George. Okay, Chris, you're up.
Yeah, I just want to comment that it looks like a lot of thought did go into this proposed plan. I'm definitely in favor, as we talked about in a previous meeting, you know, more of these smaller workout remote areas. I think is something that is lacking right now for our community. So I support that. And of course, wherever we can integrate art, I'm 100% there. And Tracy, I'm happy to be a resource in that effort, because what you described in terms of the integrated surface for the workout area or the gazebo or wayfinding, it's everything we talk about at the airport, and we're developing a plan with some of these exact same things in play for the potential new terminal at the San Diego International Airport. So I like what I see. That's my comment. I think you're muted, Andrea.
All right, Jenna, I saw you unmute yourself. Do you?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Tracy's comment that the space feels underutilized. So I love the idea of putting it to better use, and whether it's this plan or, you know, some additional updated plan, I think the goals are sound, and as a resident that lives a couple blocks away would definitely make use of this.
Thanks, Jenna. Do we have any public comment? Again, you can either utilize the raise hand function or drop a comment. I can only see 4 of your beautiful smiling faces at a time. So it's harder for me to go through all of these. While I'm looking for someone, while I'm looking for those, I agree, I echo, you know, the underutilized space, and I think we should seek putting things that will draw, as we say, family, community members out there. I know we all have this on our radar, the Ocean Beach Dog parking lot is a place where a lot of transients gather. People are living out of their cars or in it overnight, and it sometimes can become a lot, and you know, the activities that come with it. So I think really encouraging further community gathering at these parks, especially when it's families and other community members that would use this daily, maybe for the circuit court or other patios, would decrease the amount of problems we see going on in that area. You know, placemaking is it can always be something good for the community, and I know a lot of times we run away from amenities out of fear that they might draw different crowds, but I think that we shouldn't be necessarily scared in this instance. I think that the unused space draws that crowd more so than the amenities we're seeking to add. Thank you. And Denny, I live nearby and think this is a great idea. Thank you, Denny. Do we have any other community input? This did go through the Parks Subcommittee, and we talked about it extensively. There was a couple of other ideas floating around. So I'm going to then scroll down. If I don't see any more comments on actually what's going on here, I'm going to scroll down to the motion that we passed from the Parks Committee. Just to give you our eyes, we motion to adopt the drawings. This is a conceptual plan to better utilize the existing park space and make it more community and visitor friendly. Our suggest incorporating a 6 cycle track stations, designated picnic area with more picnic tables, designated play activities, wayfinding signs, community garden or pollination garden, and public art in multiple places. In addition, to incorporate any overhead barrier to prevent larger vehicles from entering the park that may incorporate wind signing or public art. That was another key thing for us, because again, we talked extensively about the large sleeper vans that back up onto the grass and end up taking a lot of grass space, and those are typically larger than your standard 10-foot tall or 12-foot tall vehicle. So if we have some kind of unique signage over the top of the entryway to that parking lot, then maybe we can, defer those people from coming in even more, since, the city doesn't want to enforce our overnight ordinance there, or physically put up a barrier to close the parking lot overnight while it is closed.
I just unmuted myself.
Greg, go ahead and mute yourself again. So this was
I think the overhead barrier is problematic because I think a lot of people who are not necessarily negative as visitors are driving Sprinter vans now, and because it's a one-way entrance for traffic flow, that would deny those people all access to that area. So I think.
Yeah, we discussed this at length, Craig, and we looked it up. And if we set the height at something around 15 feet, it allows Sprinter vans. I think what was the height of a regular Sprinter van? I think it was 11 feet. So if we set it just above that, I mean, the real issue is that these people we were also talking about bollards behind the parking spot, because the real issue is that these vans are too big and the RVs are too big for the parking spots. So they end up backing them all the way onto the grass, taking up park space.
I'm aware of that. I would say to put up jersey barriers or some other sort of structure at the curb line of the grass, which would be actually at the curb line of where the picnic area and also the fitness track area, and that would solve the problem of RVs and other vehicles backing up onto the grass, as opposed to a barrier that's going to prevent people from entering.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. That was definitely talked about, one of the longer discussions we had at the Parks meeting.
Can I add a comment on that, Andrea?
Absolutely, Kevin.
I think I'm the one that initially brought that up. I know others have in the past. It breaks my heart to restrict access to legitimate beach users in the name of trying to, put a barrier to keep people out that are literally living in the lot, which is not a legitimate use of the lot. So if there's any other possible way, maybe enforce the law. If there's any other possible way, I hate to advocate a barrier that will limit legitimate users. Some people legitimately want to drive their camper van to the beach, fit in a parking spot, and go use the beach. Travelers from recreational vehicle users, if they're too big to fit and they're taking up multiple spots, sure. If they're camping out all day, sure. But I know I proposed a barrier, but I'm not sure that is the best. Maybe it's the only thing that we can do. You sense my apprehension. I just don't like it.
I know, but like you said, even legitimate users shouldn't be backing their cars all the way up and taking up park space.
Maybe just bollards, but not a height limit.
Tracy, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, this, like Andrea said, this was something that we discussed, and how exclusionary putting something like that would be up as a barrier. Maybe we could think about what they do over at Shelter Island, where they have designated RV parking that is long, and that's where they belong. And if they park outside of the space, then they get a ticket. So you can only park in those long spaces. That was an option. And then putting up the bollards to prevent people from encroaching on the playground or the side, the grass or whatever. Those were the other options. So yeah, I agree with Kevin. It does hurt to limit and to exclude people who might just be there for the day, but there has to be something that we can do that's not so aggressive, but yet,
Bollards will be necessary to protect the park improvements anyways from someone hanging 10 feet over with their 40-foot RV. So I think we kind of have to do that anyways, just for the sake of the park. And frankly, that might push more people into double parking or parking on the street. But, we need enforcement regardless of what's done. This idea that we can just, use a barrier, I don't know. We need enforcement. We need enforcement, and we need enforcement.
Right. As I mentioned, all these efforts are the result of the lack of enforcement that we've asked for. With that said, and we can always remove this from the motion and just go forward with the other amenities proposed. We are running right up to 7 o'clock. Jen will be here, and I want to get started with short-term vacation rentals right at 7. So if that's the objection and we want to throw that back to the drawing board, great. I would like to see a motion and any discussion of a further motion. Susan, just want to comment that any height limitations need to allow for vehicles such as fire trucks. I always envisioned, my personal thought, I always envisioned it as just at the entrance, so the fire trucks come through the one-way back entrance. That was my workabout in my mind. And we have discussion. I'm going to stop sharing my screen too. Do I, so I can see you guys better and better facilitate this. Who is, can get someone on this?
Derek had a comment.
Yeah, I just had just a really quick comment. We tried to go down there this weekend because I'm kind of limited with my shoulder, so we drove down the 4 blocks, and forget pulling in there, even the dog beach, let alone parking, because it was so backed up. So it comes down to a lot of things. Do we want OB for the Obetians or OB for the visitors? Has there been any thought of maybe increasing parking in that lot where those people are backing up to those spaces to actually make those wider spaces or to offer more parking? Just my 2 cents is that nobody's going to come if they can't park. Like if I didn't live here, there's no way I would come down here on the weekend because there's just no parking down in that little part by the dog beach. So that's my 2 cents. That's all.
Thank you, Stephen. I don't think that was part of the discussion because then that would probably lead to taking.
Yeah, you're right. While we were talking about it, it occurred to me this weekend after we had the committee meeting.
So we're at 6:59. Do we have a motion at all, or any desire to push, to request any of these amenities?
Yeah, I mean, I would motion to approve the motion that the ad hoc created and just, you know, push it out there, see where it goes, see what we can get. I would motion.
Newman, you second it? Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to call for the vote. Let me just pull up the motion so I can copy and paste it to you guys.
Does this include, what does this motion include on barriers?
It would, I'm copying and paste it. So it would include the talk of barriers. So if you want to remove that, you have to get.
If it's just in a general sense, I'm okay with it.
Okay, I just posted it into the chat box. Everyone take a minute to read it. In that time, do you have, again, any community input for discussion?
I'd like to amend it if we can to remove the overhead and just put in bollards to protect the park improvements.
You'd rather make the specific change to bollards than a general change to prevent overhanging of the parking spots, so that more is to be considered?
Well, if that's covered, that's fine. I guess I want to remove the overhead barrier.
Okay.
Agreed, and that's what I was suggesting too. I would support that.
Okay, great.
We just modify the, how about,
as well.
Sorry,
How about-
can we get just Tracy talking? Thank you.
yeah, so how about we just modify, just remove the words over barrier and say incorporate ballards. I mean, well, it would have to be incorporate ballards to prevent large vehicles from encroaching.
From overhanging on parking.
Overhanging on the grass.
Overhanging on the grass. Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Overhanging on grass. Incorporate ballards to prevent large vehicles from overhanging on the grass.
Yeah, the bollards
Okay.
might still be public art and wayfinding. You'd have signs, this is that way, this is that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen some really creative bollards, you know, when we were talking about the ones on the pier. So I think we could do it.
Great. Okay. So does everyone have their cameras turned on? Please, board members, can you please turn on your cameras? Okay.
I'm gonna do a roll call.
We're going to do a roll call vote? Okay, wonderful. I just want to have it both visual and hearing. Okay, go for it, Tracy.
Okay, Anthony.
I think he's nodding his head.
Where is he?
Raise your hand or.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha. Okay. Andrea.
Aye, in favor.
Andrew. I can't see him if he's here.
Aye.
Okay. Craig.
In the comment, aye.
Thank you. Chris.
Approve.
Derek.
Aye.
George.
Aye.
Jane. I saw her mouth move. Tom.
Aye.
Jenna, where are you?
Oh, did you say Jenna?
Yeah,
Oh, hi.
gotcha. Kevin.
Aye.
Nicole.
Aye.
Thank you. Newman. Newman? Aye. Okay. Richard. Richard Merriman.
Aye.
Thank you. Virginia. I see you. Okay. And I vote aye. Passes unanimously. Yay! Okay. All right.
Thank you guys so much. Okay, and thank you, Venus and Councilmember Campbell, for being patient. I want to turn the floor over to Councilmember Campbell for just a few moments, maybe a 5-minute update in where her memorandum of understanding is and what her office's list would be and what she would do. what she'd like to hear from the board tonight, and then we're going to start with board member discussion, and then I will go to community discussion. So if you're a community member, please drop your name in the chat saying you want to speak on this item, and then we'll get to you guys. So, and I really want to keep this focused. And then we'll present the ad hoc STVR recommendations. We can discuss those, and I really want to keep this policy focused, guys. Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Councilmember Campbell. Do I have... Number, is your camera working?
I think there she goes.
Okay, wonderful.
I see a little like triangle error on her thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Video is not available.
Okay. She should be unmuted though. I have her unmuted.
Andrea, it looks like she has 2 logins, so you might want to unmute the second.
Okay.
Jennifer Campbell.
Okay. I see them both. Okay, they're both unmuted.
Hello? Can
Here
you
we
hear
go.
me?
Yes. Thank you, Anthony.
Good. Thank you. Sorry, I think there's an echo. Okay. So thanks for having me. I'm really glad to see you guys. Are you hearing an echo? No.
No.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to start out by thanking you for having us, and we appreciate your interest tremendously, of course. And I just want to tell you that this is not the Campbell MOU. This is an agreement between Expedia and Unite Here Union that they worked out together with us helping them along. Our aim is to provide more housing for San Diegans by reducing the huge number of short-term rentals in San Diego that are whole home rentals. We have at least 16,000 short-term rentals now in the city, most of which are in our district. Of those, 80 to 90% are whole home rentals. What we'd like to do is put a cap on the number of whole home rentals so that more thousands of homes and apartments will be available for our own San Diegans to either buy or rent to live in full time. So that was our main objective. Our second objective was to provide regulation and enforcement that's strong so that people who live in our district and other districts that have short-term rentals can live in peace and tranquility. And so to do that, we are working with the city attorneys to make strong enforcement and regulations. And so I know you guys have sent us questions, and we'd be happy to answer them. My chief of staff, Venus Molina, is here, and she can help answer the questions as well. So thank you. I think, do you want to go ahead and ask, or do you want me to just
yeah, thank you. I think we'll go ahead and then I'll start with Kevin. If all the board members could raise their hands, use the raise their hands function. Who wants to ask Jen a question about the memo of understanding that we've seen? And she'll be here until I think 7:30. We'll have her. And so I'll go to board members first, and then if any of the public comments. Thank you.
Can I kind of very, very quickly just describe the tiers on this for everyone's information?
Yeah.
So it would put a cap as I think 0.7% of total housing units for full-time rentals. You know, the ones we typically think of outside of Mission Beach, and then Mission Beach has a much more liberal amount allowed. There are other types, the home sharing where the host is actually there on site or in a duplex situation. Those would be allowed without limitation. And there's permitting, of course, for those. And then the other type was a temporary rental, like, Comic-Con, things like that. So you live there and you rent your place out just for, I think, under 30 days over a course of the year. So that was another type. So those are the different types we're talking about. So it would include the full-time, Airbnb as well.
That's correct.
Oh, and also the other relevant thing, and this is still sort of unsettled for me, but there's an attempt to restrict those permits to one per owner or one per person, one per LLC. I'm not exactly sure how that would be applied, but that's the intention. I understand.
Well, what we're trying to do is make it one per person. So it will be one tier, one permit per social security number. And we're working with the city attorneys to see if we can completely leave out corporations, LLCs, and those type of companies that tend to try to take over whole buildings, etc. We would like it to just be one person,
Yes.
social security number, and one tier.
What do you? What do you mean? What do you mean leave out?
Well, we would like to have the licenses go to individuals.
So you're suggesting that the ordinance that you would propose would prohibit entities of any sort from holding title to any STVR property? Only an individual could own the property?
Well, some individuals have trusts.
Here's my question, because we're getting into on this. Why no distance restriction between STVR uses?
That was one of the questions you guys asked about distance restrictions. And again, that we're taking up with the city attorneys, and we'll bring your thoughts. Please tell me what you think about that.
It's the simplest way to enforce.
And Craig,
Kevin,
if I can jump in really quick, this is Venus up here. I can also jump in on that. I think when we were having this conversation early on with the two parties, one of the reasons that this kind of the restrictions on locations and distance, because we are decreasing the number for short-term vacations significantly. So that was I think that was one of the things that we looked at, because the number has decreased so much. It's closer to 78% at this point. That's one of the things that we kind of didn't apply, because there's going to be a lot less short-term vacation rentals out there.
Well, I'd like Kevin to address the distance restriction, but I also like to ask you about the elephant in the room, which is, how are you going to get, if you're going to go from 16,000 down to 4,000, how are you going to deal with the 12,000 people that have been making a bunch of money who are now shut down? Seems to me there's going to be a bunch of lawsuits over vested property rights. Have you thought about that?
I can actually answer that, council member, because I've been speaking to the attorneys and the platforms and as well. So one of the platforms has already agreed in Expedia, and they understand, and they've actually met with their operators as well as Airbnb. They're not at the table yet, but we are in conversations with them as well, and they've spoken to their operators as well. So if this regulation comes into it's voted on this year, it probably wouldn't be implemented until next year, but there would have a grace period. There's a couple things that the operators would require for untanglement This wouldn't be something that would happen right away. And we've talked to the city attorney about this. And so there's actually a grace period and a method in where we can definitely give them an opportunity to unwind. So you wouldn't see this into effect until about July of 2021. But there's a way of doing that, and both operators are very much informed and they know that this is something that would happen, and they haven't pushed back on that since. So I can tell you right now that this is not a controversial issue for them.
Sorry, Venus, could you just clarify, are you saying that there's 12,000 of current short-term vacation rentals that will voluntarily give up their vacation?
It's not voluntarily, because I think what we're looking for are the best actors and the best actual operators that are out there. And because there is a limited amount of permits that will be available, the best actors are the ones that are actually going to obtain it. So right now we're looking with on different methods on how we're going to provide those permits and give those permits to the most in the most equitable and legal way. And that's where the city attorney is looking into this, whether it's a lottery or it's grandfathering in the best actors. We really don't know at the moment, because obviously we're looking at the best legal way, where our own city attorney is looking into it. So if it's a lottery, obviously we want the best actors and we want the people that are good neighbors, and we're probably going to put some provisions there with people that maybe have not been troubled homes or troubled operators in the past. So we're looking at those kind of provisions so that we get the best of the best. The great thing about having a cap on this as well is that although in the past people wouldn't mind paying enforcement fees, you know, they would pay 10,000 or 5,000, whatever fees we would charge, but now they have the risk of losing their permits. And so that actually puts the fear in a lot of folks, because losing their permits means they're not going to be getting any revenue, and they'll be losing it for whatever amount of years that we set those permits for. So that's a stronger enforcement on our end, and that's what we're working on with the city attorney right now.
Venus, I think those are both big question marks at this point, both the enforcement, where the enforcement's going to come from, and then also the framework on what that's going to look like to reduce that number of permits. And so I think without more information on that, it's hard to get a clearer understanding of this proposal.
And also I would share too that we have, because obviously we don't have all the answers, and we can give you a framework or a vision of what we would like to see, and that's why it's important to hear from all of you. But I think the great thing about this and our input is we take it back to our city attorney, and at the same time we're having an all hands meeting with city departments, because obviously I don't know what DSD is going to do, and we don't know what the city treasurer's office needs, the IBA. So we're having an all hands meeting with all of the involved departments to kind of figure out who's going to do what, where is this going to live, and what it is that we need to enforce and to actually get this done right. So we actually have that set up for this month. So we'll have a little bit more information after that.
All right, yeah, that was my question. I know at the beginning you wanted to mention that it's an agreement between Expedia and Unite here that you guys facilitated. So then what is your office's next step? Where do you see this agreement going? And what do you want to see from us?
Councilmember, you want to take that?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So what we're doing now is we're working with the city attorneys to try and craft, and also meeting with the city departments so that we can craft the regulations and enforcement pieces and have them actually be real. We want this to really work this time. We want to have it be successful. And so again, you know, with the main focus being to bring more housing to our own citizens and to create peace and tranquility in the STR business world for our neighborhoods. People live where there are STRs. And so we will keep that utmost in mind, and we will have to figure out from the the auditors and the independent budget analyst, etc., how much fees we will have to charge in order to have enough money to enforce well and to do a good job. And we also want to make sure that there is a method in there that we can revisit this yearly at least, so that when problems arise, we will be able to correct them and fix them. And as times change, we will be able to move forward with making sure that things work better.
Awesome, interesting. Thank you. I think Tracy had a question that I saw here, and then I see a lot of public comments, so I want to get to them before we go. So Tracy, how are you going to compromise with Airbnb, who wants double the amount of permits? And then I'm gonna switch to public comment after this. That's our last board comment.
I can address that. I've actually had ongoing meetings with Airbnb, and obviously in their last meeting that they had, they want to increase their number to 1.2%, I believe. And so we talked about that, and obviously those numbers are not going to work with the compromise that we have. Our goal was to bring more housing to the market. Our goal was to limit the cap and the amount of short-term vacation rentals that were available. Now, there's a lot of things on the enforcement side that they've also requested. So we're trying to figure out, kind of like a best case scenario. They're still at the table. We're still talking to them, just like we're talking to you guys, and we're talking to anybody that is open and providing input as we create this ordinance, because it has to be an ordinance that works for everyone. And so that's why it's important that Airbnb is still at the table. And there, like I said, there's a lot of things that they've presented other than the 1.2%, which I think is a high number, and we can definitely have a conversation about that, and we will, because I think that number is a little too high for us right now.
I get some questions in, Andrea?
Yeah, I have a couple of, public comments if it's quick, because I know we only have a few minutes and I hate to rob the public of a chance.
So, okay, I'll try and trim this then. The cap is going to, I think, remove a lot from the suburbs that aren't very profitable. I don't think it's going to remove many from the beach areas, especially if the permit fees are high. So I'm not sure if this is actually going to result in a reduction here, or maybe even an increase, especially since it exempts duplexes. The reason that other people have pushed for exempting duplexes, or, I live on site, I want to rent my other unit out on Airbnb, was sort of in exchange for removing the whole home rentals. It was sort of a trade-off, but now this proposal has both. So I wanted to mention that, my concern on the cap. And obviously a distance restriction would really go a long ways to prevent anyone from being overwhelmed on their particular block. It's happening right now, and I think will still happen under this proposal. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I think is even a bigger elephant, is the issue of how we got here. The premise is that we can't enforce the existing code, and I was hoping the council member's office could give more detail on why they believe that is the case.
Well, we have several reasons. First of all, this has been going on for many years now, and the lawyers tell us that once a city has not taken care of its regulation, and indeed has actually charged fees to the people who are doing this and collected taxes from the people who are doing this, that the courts will side with those people and not with the city if they try to totally ban them. So that's number one. Number two is the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission has ruled up and down the coast that we cannot ban short-term rentals, especially from beach areas. And
it's
so
already banned, so
that is unfortunately true. Now they tell us that they are fine with us limiting the number. We have spoken with the Coastal Commission and they've been in on our plans. They are fine with us limiting the number of whole home rentals. They understand that California and San Diego especially is in need of more housing for our own residents. And so they're willing to go along with the limit, but they will not allow us to totally ban it. So we are unfortunately, when this had all started maybe 10 years ago, the city had clamped down, maybe we would be in a better position. We started out from our office trying to ban them. That was our first plan. And as it turned out, we've been able to negotiate 78% of them gone. And that is a huge advantage for our citizens. So that was the best we could do, and we're delighted that we could get that far along. So that's what we hope to do. We'll have many more apartments and homes on the market for our own people to either buy or to rent to live in full time.
Thanks, Jen. I do have just one follow-up question. I think that was the main question coming from the audience. So then I'm going to hop to Chris. So hopefully we have enough time for these last two questions. So even if we aren't seeking a full citywide ban and just a ban in specifically residential zones, and we're allowing it in mixed use and commercial zones, that still wouldn't fly, because then it would be some zones that would be okay, just not the things that are restricted for 30-day or longer rentals at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. That's another thing that we are discussing with the city attorneys. The zoning is pretty complex, as you know, and so we're trying to figure out how we can do that. I'm really interested in Kevin's idea about the distance between them, and if he has any ideas as to exactly how that would work, I would love for him to send an email to the office so we can fly his ideas with the city attorneys and try to work something out to make it more equitable and better for our citizens.
Jen, that's already been discussed, and it's done in San Luis Obispo, and that information has been provided to you by John Thixton and other people who have been involved in this issue, and you should already have information regarding the distance restriction, which was adopted by San Luis Obispo and which has been approved by the Coastal Commission up there. So that is part of the knowledge base right now. You should already have that information.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Craig. And I want to jump to Chris too, because I know he's patiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, and I promise that's not my dog. I do have a question, and I want to leave time for the public comment. Council member, I made a comment at the beginning of the meeting that I'm disappointed in the amount of engagement that we were part of to get us to this point. And so I'm looking for a better relationship in these conversations going forward. So that's the comment. I also have a comment in relation to what I'm seeing in the MOU. I think there are some good things here. Obviously, someone needs to step up. We've been asking for this for a long time. And so I am pleased to see that there's effort. Again, we didn't receive the updates in the way that I wish we would have, or been engaged in the way that I wish we would have, but am happy to see that at least we are now back on track to trying to solve this issue. My question is, in the MOU, Tier 3, the whole home rental, and I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. In these Tier 3 properties, they can be rented for more than 30 days. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it also looks like the language identifies that no person can hold more than one permit for a whole home rental. Is that correct as well?
Yes, for any of the 4 tiers, they can only hold one permit or license.
Okay. And I do see the similar enforcement issues that we're kind of talking about, but I think that is a very good step in the right direction. So I wanted to call that out and recognize that, I think that is a step the way we need to be headed. I have more questions and comments, but I know we have an ad hoc subcommittee that hopefully we can funnel through some of those questions.
Sure. Well, please reach out to us. We're always happy to engage with you guys. We've been engaging with various community groups and various community leaders for a year and a half, ever since I got into office. And I've actually been interested in this subject for about 10 years. Used to be a member of Save San Diego Neighborhoods myself. But when they became all or nothing, it was obvious that we had to have a compromise. So I'm now trying to help us to reach that compromise and make available 10 to 12,000 more housing units for our people.
Sure, and I just think maybe more in-depth updates from Teddy at these meetings could have been helpful. I'm not trying to look back, but we are here to work with you, and so let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Thanks so much.
And can I also just say I added my email on there. I added my email on there as well. So, and Andrea and Kevin know how to get a hold of us, and Teddy's on here every month as well. So if you have any ideas or further questions, my email's on there. You can reach me directly. I'm working directly on this issue with the council member. So Teddy only has probably a little bit more of the surface information, but if you want, to dig in deeper into this, you can definitely email me directly.
Can I just dovetail on Chris's comments? I'm really frustrated that I thought we were going to have a seat at the table here, and we've been sort of pestering and talking about this with Teddy at our meetings. And Andrea, and I think Anthony were invited to finally get face to face with the council member and really get down to the brass tacks. And then I find out after that meeting that this MOU had already been signed the day before, and that's not the way to do it. And now the cat's,
All right,
the horse is out of the barn. So we need to let's consider this a work
Kevin,
in
do you
progress.
have a question?
Do you have a question?
I really want this time to be focused on policy specific questions, so then we can get into a discussion after this.
My question is, can we consider this a work in progress and, seriously give the residents a seat at the table instead of, hotel unions? I get it, we're far apart, but you're not going to get any favor out of residents if they're not deeply involved in the process. And I'm absolutely willing to do it. I've been living and breathing this for years, and as have many others in the community.
And as have we, and yes, we have met in the office with Andrea and many people from OB over the past year and a half, and we are always happy to meet more with you. We love your ideas, and we love that you are really, you're so good at collecting data, and we're so appreciative of that. And, yes, we definitely, I know you personally might feel that your input hasn't been as broad as you would like it to be, but we're happy to hear from you anytime. Please send us emails, phone calls, talk to Venus if you want to set us up in person, or at least by Zoom until the COVID's over. And we're definitely, you guys live it. You guys know what's going on. I've lived it myself in my neighborhood. And believe me, we are all on the same page on this. We will do everything we can with the city attorneys that's within the law. Yeah, I'm sure you can appreciate how legally complicated this situation is, but we're doing our best to put ourselves out there and try to resolve the situation as best we can. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah, and before you go, has there been any changes made to the MOU as of yet, or is it planning to go to council as is, or what is the timeline?
Oh, no. The MOU, you have to understand, is between those two parties.
Those two parties, yeah.
So
So
that
you
is,
are
it is
willing
not,
to put down
it
a
is
different
not the,
ordinance?
I'm sorry?
So you're willing to put forward a different ordinance with different specifications?
Oh,
So-
yeah. The
Okay.
details in there are between those two parties.
So that's their negotiating position, and so we should be coming up with our negotiating positions to then push forward.
And just so that we're very clear on how this works, we were able to bring in these two very opposing groups together to kind of have a seat at the table, because we knew if anything was going to pass, these two folks needed to be on the table and they needed to be in some kind of agreement, right? So that we can actually move forward and they wouldn't be fighting us or each other or everybody else. So now that they both agreed to certain terms, we're creating an ordinance. Now, some of these things will change more. Think of it as a skeleton of the ordinance, but we as a community, as an office, we have to fill in the blanks, and we have to fill in all of the meat to it. So that's why we're getting all of the input and information from all of you guys in different groups. It's not too late. It's not coming to council until probably September after the recess, of course. So there's plenty of time. We have recess in August, which we will make ourselves available with folks and talk to folks.
Venus, I have one very direct question.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Frank Klein. Have the platforms that you entered into the MOU with, have they taken a position with respect to opposing a distance restriction? Is that a non-starter for them? Because that's a big deal.
Well, I think that's a conversation we're willing to have. I think we didn't really have, I mean, once we reduced the numbers, our focus was to reducing the numbers and releasing a lot of housing. So we'll definitely go back with this option because, like I said, our focus was the reduction of numbers and a cap. So we'll definitely bring this up. I knew it wasn't something that they were very happy about because of the reduction of numbers, but it's definitely something we can take back because if that's something that's big for you guys as a community.
You understand why they would be opposed to this, right? It would reduce the number of their most profitable beach area rentals where all the high concentrations are.
Okay.
But that's very important to
Yes,
the beach communities.
we understand.
Okay,
And
good.
I'm so sorry, we do have to go now, but thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon, I hope. Take care.
Yeah, thank you guys. Teddy will still staying around so you guys can address all questions. And as Venus said, her email is in the chat. Obviously, you know, you can always CC Teddy, you can CC me to follow up with them as well. And please do continue to get all their content, all your comments into them. We're going to pivot more to our STVR recommendations now. I do know Corey has been waiting, and I did want to get him to weigh in on this with, of course, Craig, our attorneys present recently, about the legal precedent set forward by other cities who have pursued restricting Airbnbs in their residential zones. And then and in that meantime, while they're talking, I am going to put up what the STVR subcommittee has been working on so everyone can see it. So if Craig wants to start first as the board member, and then I would love to hear from Corey, if that's okay with my fellow board members.
This is George McCullough. I've had my hand up for 20 minutes and
oh my
haven't
goodness,
been
George, I'm sorry. I've been looking at the chat.
Okay. My question is, I have 2 children. She was saying it has to be Social Security number oriented. I have 2 children. We have 3 Social Security numbers. So I could get 3 permits in my family based on 3 different Social Security numbers. Is that correct?
Can I address that? I don't think they've really completely ironed that out, but you're right. It's very problematic, and I don't know if they will ever find a satisfactory way to achieve 1 per person. And I suspect that platforms are probably okay with it because like previous proposals put forward, it's very easy. It creates a giant loophole potentially. So yeah, we got to look at that one very closely. There's a lot of Social Security numbers on planet Earth.
Thank you, Kevin. Am I muted again? No. So I know the legal precedent question has really been eating away at us, and I think it's hard to move forward with this conversation until that's adequately addressed. So if I can have Craig and Corey maybe further comment on that, and while they're commenting, you should be able to see all of what the STVR subcommittee has been working on up on your screen now. Thank you.
Wait a second. I'm trying to unmute myself. I'll defer to Corey. I will defer to Corey on this.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay for me to go?
Yeah, go for it. Thank you.
Alrighty. So I'm Corey Briggs. I am running for city attorney, and I'm a lawyer who works on coastal commission issues. I'm a lawyer who works on enforcing municipal code issues, code enforcement, environmental issues. So I know this area fairly well. Let me just start by telling you that this is not complicated at all. It's being made complicated by the proposal. And if the public is supportive of the proposal or some new set of regulations, that's up to the public and the mayor and the city council. Right now, it's not complicated because there's already a cap on short-term vacation rentals. The cap is 0. Under the municipal code, short-term vacation rentals are not listed as an authorized use. And under our form of zoning regulation, if it's not explicitly listed, it's prohibited, period. We have what's known as a permissive code. If the code does not expressly permit a use, it is prohibited. So we already have a cap of 0. Any discussion about a proposal that will reduce the number from 16,000 to anything above 0 is not a prohibition or a reduction. It is an authorization.
Great. So what is then the truth then to the possible litigation that could come about if we do seek to put further regulations on the book?
If you try to authorize them, you're still going to have to go to the Coastal Commission for approval. The Coastal Commission has already approved our zoning code. They did that long ago, decades ago. We already have the Coastal Commission's blessing. The reason that the Coastal Commission has made an issue out of it recently is because short-term vacation rentals are a relatively new phenomenon with the intensity that we've seen over the last several years. And so the Coastal Commission is trying to strike a balance to maintain access to the coast and also maintain quality of life in the coastal communities. However, they approved our rules long ago. Things don't become legal because the government doesn't enforce them. Just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court ruled on a case involving the state of Oklahoma, where much of the state remains as a Native American reservation, even though the federal government and the state government have not treated it that way for over 100 years. And Justice Gorsuch said at the end of the ruling, I won't quote it verbatim, but he essentially said, just because the government doesn't enforce the law, that doesn't make it okay to change the law. If the government hasn't enforced the rules, the law is still on the books. And the reason courts will still enforce the law a long time after it was put on the books, and even after years of non-enforcement, is because, as Justice Gorsuch said, if you did otherwise, the losers would be the people who followed and relied on the law, and the winners would be the lawbreakers. And we don't live in a society where people who follow the rules lose and people who break the rules win. So we have a prohibition now. If the public wants to allow them, that's what's on the table. But nobody should be duped into believing that this is somehow an elimination of short-term vacation rentals. It is an authorization of short-term vacation rentals. Now, part of the proposal is that only individuals, human beings with social security numbers, will get them. That's almost certainly unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has already said that corporations have the same First Amendment rights as human beings do. And so if that logic applies in everything else we do, and by the way, it does, corporations can own businesses just like individuals, there's no way to rationally distinguish between a corporation owning a short-term vacation rental and an individual. And the gentleman who just said, what about my family? We've got 3 short-term vacation rentals. People can form as many entities as they want. It's illegal to say that an entity can't do something that a human being can do unless you have a really good reason. And if you just look around, most properties that are on the rental market are in entities anyways. So the suggestion that they'll be able to lawfully limit it to individuals, that is what's going to draw litigation. Also, if you're taking any advice from City Attorney Maura Elliott right now, you're simply not paying attention to everything else that's going on in the city. Read the newspaper about 101 Ash. Read the newspaper about how she threatened to prosecute a reporter who disclosed her malpractice on that transaction. Look at what she did on the street.
All right, can we please stay on topic?
Sure.
And
My-
she is your opponent, of course.
No, that's true. But my point is, you can't trust that city attorney to give good legal advice, and yet your council member, my council member, is deferring to the city attorney. I would not be taking that legal advice very far. The last thing I would tell you is that you could have a city attorney, it could be the incumbent, it could be another city attorney, who simply issues cease and desist letters for the code violations that are currently happening. You issue the letter, the city attorney has statutory authority already, without the mayor's approval or the city council's approval, to shut them down. The easiest thing to do is send out the short-term vacation rental, send the owners the cease and desist letter, and start with the biggest fish first. There's no statute of limitations for failure to enforce. There was a question about what do you do for people who've been doing this a long, long time. For those few people who can prove that they were doing this decades ago, before the code prohibited short-term vacation rentals, those folks will be, they will be entitled to a non-conforming use. And that's a constitutionally recognized mechanism for allowing things that used to be lawful but are now illegal to remain in use as long as they were lawful at the time they started. If people have documentation to prove that that's what they were doing, those folks would be grandfathered in. Everybody else,
Technical question there.
illegal. Sure.
I put it in the chat about RM 512 zones, which allow for visitor accommodation. I read that as it would be as in those zones they would be allowable because RM 512 does allow for visitor accommodation. What are your thoughts on that?
If you have an explicit authorization, it meets the requirements for the code, but you have to have an explicit authorization. If you don't have an explicit authorization, it's prohibited.
So it sounds to me like RM 512 specifies visitor accommodation as something that's allowable, then it would be.
I haven't seen that in my own eyes, Craig. If you want to send it to me, I'll look at it.
You can just look up you can look up the muni code. It's RM 512. It's this weird zoning that exists on little pieces. Well, a little piece of Ocean Beach where the Tide Hotel is.
Right, we have a few.
Yeah, there might be some clusters. I'm not denying it. I'm just telling you I don't know the language off the top of my head. If it says that it's okay on those spots,
then it's okay.
But that's correct. But if it doesn't allow it,
well, perhaps to clarify, in the municipal code, RM 512 is the only R zoning that allows for visitor accommodation. Anything below that in intensity does not allow it.
Yeah. I'm happy to take any other questions if folks have them.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, if you have any, I think John has yes.
Yeah, take something really quick about visitor accommodations and short-term vacation rentals. The short-term vacation rentals may or may not fall under the definition of visitor accommodations. Visitor accommodations are generally hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts, and they all comply with the appropriate regulations that are applied to those kinds of visitor accommodations. So short-term vacation rentals may not be allowed in, as Craig's pointed out, as they are under the code, in that particular zone, because they may not comply with the appropriate regulation. That is, fire alarms, fire escapes, exits, entries, egress, ingress, parking, all of the things that hotels, motels, and bed and breakfasts are required.
Craig, that's the reason I was hedging, because I wanted to see the language. There are a bunch of health and safety code provisions that apply to hotels and motels and bed and breakfasts. And I just wanted to see whether whatever language they use in that RM 512 makes some sort of reference to that. If it does, it would mean that short-term vacation rentals still aren't allowed.
I'm looking at the chart. I didn't think it had any reference to that. But it's, we're talking about maybe a total of 10 potential lots that could contain them. in OB in that zone.
So just one more thing, just to make it really clear, that the municipal code has a definition for visitor accommodations. That's lodging for tourists and visitors. And short-term vacation rentals may fall under that definition. But short-term vacation rentals in and of themselves, that definition doesn't appear anywhere in the municipal code. Other coastal communities like Hermosa Beach, Santa Monica, Santa Barbara have determined that short-term vacation rentals can be visitor accommodations. But other than that, they're prohibited. And Hermosa Beach actually determined that for two reasons, short-term vacation rentals were not permitted in their residential zones. One was because they did fall under the definition of visitor accommodations, and the other was because they were not a listed use. So they used both of those. And I should point one other point. The Coastal Commission has not gone after any city in the coastal zone that has enforced their existing municipal code that prohibits short-term vacation rentals. Coronado is one example. It's right across the bridge. Short-term vacation rentals are not permitted in residential zones. The Coastal Commission is fine with that. So,
Thank you.
And I know about it because I litigated the case. That was the city of Del Mar, where Del Mar tried to clamp down on them. And the reason Del Mar lost in that case is because even before it incorporated in the 70s, it explicitly authorized short-term vacation rentals. Their planning documents, their general plan, they all made reference to this being an authorized use. And in fact, their version of the Planning Commission, when they incorporated, was presented with a motion to ban them, and it voted against that and continued to allow them. The Coastal Commission, after the city tried to ban them, actually required them to make changes to be more accommodating because Del Mar was essentially trying to make them non-existent, even though they've been an explicitly authorized use from the beginning. That is the one exception. Otherwise, John is right. I'm sorry to correct you.
there are two attorneys here that fundamentally disagree about what happened in Del Mar, and I'm happy to talk to you about that offline, Corey.
Great.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for that legal background. I know everyone's mind was on it. So it really does sound like we can do something here in the residential areas to push these more into the commercial zones. I know, speaking with our business district, that's what they would like to see. So let's pivot back. Like Jen Campbell said, or Councilmember Campbell said, that is Expedia's and Unite Here's opening bid and position. So what I want us to come up with, and like she's looking for, is our bid and our starting position. So I put it in the chat box, our STVR, what we came up with the subcommittee to respond directly to that memo of understanding. But I want to make it very clear to the board that we can decide whatever our position is. This has just been the work of our short-term vacation rental subcommittee. Before this memo of understanding came out, and what we discussed with Jen Campbell at our meeting was a permit and tiered system. Now, of course, we had distance requirements in there, and we had other things in there to try and push this into the commercial zones as much as possible. So I have that short-term vacation rental ad hoc in the chat. Captain, would you like to run through the points quickly, and then we can open for further discussion? I told Stephen, because he was finally able to log in, that we'd get to him by 8. I am going to say that I'm going to extend this discussion, I'm so sorry, Stephen, for shortly past 8. Because I do want to give everyone a chance to talk. Nancy, I see your hand up. You're on my brain too. So Kevin, I'm going to have you run through these short-term vacation rental, the ad hoc subcommittee, our points, and then I want to go to some more community comment, and then I want to get board discussion on what our motion should be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So to be clear, this was specifically to address her proposal, and really taking her word for it that this was necessary and that a ban isn't allowed. But So the first point is that she allows duplexes and ADUs to count as a home sharing situation, and there's no limit on those. And so the committee voted that those should be counted in the tier 3, which is the ones that are capped. Those should be counted as a whole home rental because they remove naturally occurring affordable housing. I know that the new companion units specifically prohibit these, but there's a lot of old ones that allow it. And frankly, if I build a new one, you know, I can still put my house on Airbnb under the new companion unit rules. So number one was to basically roll those in with the other house rentals and count them towards the cap. Number two, any parcels that benefit from housing subsidies, and I sort of mentioned this already, but any kind of bonuses, ADUs, you know, fees, anything that's geared towards adding housing, that entire parcel should be excluded. I mean, if we're trying to add housing, then why are we undercutting it by, you know, turning those into vacation rentals on something else on that property? So number three was to require a 100-foot distance between the full-time tier 3 permits in residential zones. Number four was to require that the permit be linked to a unique owner or person and remove these loopholes, LLC types of ownerships. You know, if you want an LLC, that's fine, but maybe it has to be the actual primary resident. Some way of, it just seems like a big loophole, and some way to keep that as intended as a one per. And consult with the real estate attorney as needed. I don't know that Jen is maybe completely understanding on how to do that. That issue came up with the previous proposal that passed or that failed actually. Permits have to be non-transferable. Otherwise, these become like tokens in the New York taxi race. So there has to be a way for someone to get out of this if their neighbor sells, not like an alcohol license or something like that. Removing the bed and breakfast provisions from the code should be, these need to be rolled in with the tier 2 or tier 3 permits because I believe the bed and breakfast is a loophole around any sort of restrictions that are done. So that has to be considered. Number 7 is that the commercial zones should allow the full-time rentals, the ones that are not limited based on number. As Andrea said, that's where these things belong anyways. Number 8 is that there's some language in the enforcement about they may be fined or possible this or that, is to change those and make those more firm to require a fine or revoking a permit if they have certain violations. Number 9 was to restrict the maximum guests allowed to 2 people per bedroom plus 1. And then number 10 was to require a 3-day minimum. So those are recommendations from the committee on how this proposal should be tweaked before being considered by the board.
Thank you, Kevin. No matter how many times we do this, I'll still start talking without unmuting myself. So I'm gonna flip over to Nancy. I promised you could have your time. So I'm unmuting you now, Nancy. Oh, wait. Great.
Really quick, and I apologize, but as a matter of understanding the position that it is not allowed, and that the city attorney has said in the past, I remember going to a meeting years ago when this started, if we would enforce the law, then that would take care of it because they're not allowed. And I was just in a meeting with Barbara Bree a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about the same thing. So my quick question is, what if that is the case, as this group and Corey states, why has none of that been done? Why are we still in this place? Why has the city not enforced? I just need to understand.
So that is a mayor's office And I know I sound like a brokered record, and I hate myself for continuing to say it, but the mayor's office does enforce that mechanism. As we're seeing with the social distancing orders, with the large gathering orders, unless there's actual will from the county, from the mayor, to send out the people and give directions to start enforcing that, we're never going to see that. So I think, I mean, honestly, the best way to get a ban, if we just have to come back with these negotiations and continue to negotiate ordinances, is getting a mayor in office that would, from day one, actually enforce that ban. And then, as you know, as everyone's saying here, we would most likely be sued. But when you are sued, then you settle the lawsuit, and we know whether we're right or we're wrong.
Andrea, I just want
to kind of come up down to
Andrea, I want to tell you that you're only partly right. If you have a mayor who says to the city attorney, enforce, you can enforce. You also need a city attorney, regardless of what the mayor says, to enforce. The city attorney already has the authority to do it. You need a mayor to do it or a city attorney to do it. You don't have either one. You can get it with either one, you can get it with both, but it's already illegal. The city attorney could shut down businesses. The district attorney filed charges against the gym that was violating COVID orders. It didn't need the Board of Supervisors to authorize that prosecution because the district attorney has independent authority outside the city of San Diego to enforce misdemeanors. So your city attorney has the authority as the city attorney to do it, even if the mayor says don't do it. If it's illegal, it's illegal. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood it's an either or. It's not dependent on what your mayor does. It's dependent on your mayor or your city attorney.
Thank you. So with that clarification going forward, I do think there are more public comments to be had. I see Keith Fink's hand up. Keith? Let me mute yourself for. Okay, Keith, I have you unmuted if you still wanted to talk.
Yes. So my concern is no matter what the law is the enforcement thing. I mean, it just seems, the whole thing seems sort of ludicrous. We have laws that aren't being enforced right in the middle of a pandemic. We have people unlawfully gathering. We have vendors unlawfully selling foods. They're creating this huge health hazard down there. There's no enforcement. So I think it doesn't really much matter what the law is. First, we got to get enforcement. And if we can get enforcement, then we're already done because the law is already on the books. So I don't think, whatever they promise us is kind of meaningless. There's no precedent for them, coming here to look at our, it's the city's poor little sister of OB and taking care of us here.
And there's more people coming in for those STVRs.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Do I have more? So I have Tiernan Seaver. Tiernan, I'm gonna unmute you if you need to unmuting yourself.
Hear me?
The floor. I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to go ahead and thank you guys for taking this into thoughtful consideration and you using the tier method too to take into consideration kind of all the ways people are using short-term vacation rentals. As someone who uses it as a way to help us pay our mortgage and be able to actually afford our home, I appreciate you guys using that, like tier 2 and things like that, where we're actually living here in our home. We as well don't want the big parties and things like that because we're here as well. So it's obviously enforcement's not an issue because we're here to enforce it every day. And I think that goes along well with the duplexes and the accessory units too. I would consider that as well. But I wanted to thank you guys for kind of keeping your mind open and considering the different tier levels and considering how the housing market is here and the way that people potentially use the short-term vacation rentals as a way to be able to afford to be a resident of OB. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that perspective as well. It's a lot of times missing from these conversations. And I don't know, I don't see some of our ad hoc members that were also short-term vacation rental operators, but they were very much on the side of grandfathering in and making sure that they haven't lost any of their investments. That's just there. I don't see them. Otherwise, I'd call on Pedro, who was our active short-term vacation renter. I don't see him. I also know that the PB Council wanted me to give you guys their perspective on everything. They are very much for enforcing the code. They don't, against this memo of understanding, and very much want to continue to pursue that option of code enforcement, making sure there are no home hold rentals anywhere in residential areas, and they do feel very left out of this process. So the PB Town Council wanted me to relay that along to you guys as well. They do have their board meeting today, so they could not be in attendance. So
Andrea?
Yes.
With respect to the last caller, we've never considered that home sharing, which it sounds like is what they're doing, renting a room or two in their house, to be something prohibited under the code, sharing as opposed to whole home rentals. So I don't think there's ever been, to anybody out there who rents a room in their house, you're not subject to what we're trying to do here.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah. I know, I agree with anyone who lives in their house. You should be able to rent out their rooms on their house. But I do also agree with Kevin's point that if there was, at all, any sort of, reduction of permitting rates and increased permitting speed to get an accessory dwelling unit or other such measures to add residential units, and they're not used for longer than 30-day rentals, I think that's a very good point. That's a taxpayer subsidy we're giving out for this specific reason, to create more housing, and anything that then is used for visitor accommodations. It's
I agree with you completely. I don't consider renting out or an ADU as a home sharing.
Yeah, no, I think we're more of in your home, Great.
Could I give just sort of a general comment? There is a place for these whole home vacation rentals, and it's not on anybody's residential block. And I refuse to be held hostage to these host companies that own our mayor and own our city attorney. I refuse to be held hostage to them in negotiating based on this premise that apparently seems to be a very weak premise, that we have to allow this in some fashion, especially on the cusp of a mayoral campaign where we have a very legitimate candidates that have taken strong positions on this. And I think it would be a huge mistake for the board to support whole home rentals. The on-site, backyard unit thing, sure, whatever. I think that's really just to get people off our backs. It still takes away housing. We have a massive housing crisis right now, according to the state, and we're getting forced down our throat with these huge 100-unit micro units, no FAR limits. It's totally ridiculous. Some of these neighborhoods are going to have 20-story buildings next to their homes, and this is in the name of housing. And here we are trying to satisfy Airbnb, these glorified couch surfers. Let's allow some couch surfing, and put them back on their damn couch. I think this is really a ridiculous point here that we're negotiating based on this premise. This has to be ironed out before the board takes any sort of position on this, and we have to be included in the process. We were not included in the process. That was this token show of inclusion, and it clearly was not. That MOU came out despite our badgering before we even met with the council members. So I think it's unfair, and she even dropped my name as a great member to be participating. I don't feel like I participated at all. I think that was really a disgrace to the public input process. That's all I have. I'm not going to support anything that that puts whole home rentals in our residential zones.
Thank you, Kevin. Celine, so we do, as I said, that's completely within our wheelhouse to make such a motion tonight. It does sound like we do have time if we do want to revisit this. Ideally, like I said, we want to hear about the roundabout later, so I do want to wrap this discussion up. Do we have any more point of views, perspective, comments that haven't already been heard before I ask the board for a decision on possibly making a motion? Or
I'd like to propose a motion.
Oh, okay, Craig.
I would move that we table any further participation in attempting to draft a compromise legislation or move forward until after the election in November.
Okay, even if the possibility of this being docketed.
I don't think, I think Kevin makes such a valid point that if we get a new mayor and a new city attorney, the entire landscape changes and we're less than 90 days away.
I would second Craig's motion. I think, we really want to do this and we want to get our sink our teeth into it, but I think that the landscape is going to change drastically after the election, and I really would rather not approve or deny anything that may not even be real at this point. So I would second Craig's motion wholeheartedly.
Great. So Craig, can you type that out for me? And do we have any discussion on Craig's motion?
Andrea, this is Anthony.
Thank you, Anthony. Yes.
I just wanted to reiterate in the comments, Venus did state to me that they plan to put this in front of the city council before the year's end, before the election, I believe. So we might have to do this out before this landscape changes. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Right, that's my concern. They did say they're not going to put it before the August recess.
Yeah.
And after that, we will have September to possibly consider this, or October.
Hey, Andrea, this is Pedro.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Pedro. Did you just look in?
No, I've been here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you.
Our subcommittee started out with a mission statement that was it sounded a whole lot different than especially the comments that Kevin just laid out. And I think it's really sad that it strayed so much from that mission statement.
Thank you, Pedro. Okay. Do I have to
I just have a quick question on the timeline for Councilmember Campbell's office to move this forward. I'd hate for the board to miss out on an opportunity to contribute to drafting something when it looks like this is probably going to come before City Council before November.
Thank you, Nicole. Andrew? Sorry.
There we go. No, I appreciate both sides of the debate, but I feel like with Craig's comment and some of the stuff we heard from Corey, that it seems like it would cut off her nose to spite her face if we try to make decisions under this powers of be. But if we decide not to move forward with any input, then we also potentially miss the boat if they decide to move forward. So if we do decide to put forward a motion to not make a stance, I think that motion should include language about that, ideological line in the sand about not wanting to not have a voice, but not wanting to let a decision move forward without our voice, based on this protest, pushing it down the road.
I just put my motion up in the comments.
Thank you. Okay, so Craig, and I have a second on this motion on the floor. Move to take any motion to respect to supporting any proposed legislation until after the November, election. The ad hoc committee can continue to present input in the interim. So would that, let me clarify this motion. The board, you would be asking the board not to take a formal position, but ceding the authority to the ad hoc committee to continue to communicate with council offices about any proposal going forward in the future.
Right. You know, to clarify, there really isn't anything that even looks like a piece of proposed legislation yet, right? There's only this MOU, and they're kind of looking for us to buy in. Oh, this is a great concept, you know? And there really isn't anything there. You know, once you have a proposed legislation, first draft for first reading, then we could put it before the board and we could vote whether or not we support that particular piece of legislation. But right now, there's nothing there, and what they want, what I think, you know, Jen Campbell's office and Venus especially is trying to do, she's trying to manipulate us into supporting what they're doing in principle, so then they can say, oh, the OB Planning Board, you know, is supporting our proposal. And their proposal is really, it's a little bit better than something sketched on the back of a napkin, but it ain't much.
Okay, so then would you
If you want to modify this, I'm open to any friendly amendment.
Yes, we can vote on this. I don't want to tie our hands if something is good. That's where
I have a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this, but it needs to be stronger. It needs to say, and until the legal issue of enforcing the existing code is settled. I refuse, as a board member, to support anything based on a premise that ends up being false. I've been believing this line for years, that we have no choice. You know, we're held hostage. We have to allow it. I'm not convinced of that anymore. So I say, go for it. Get the damn attorneys. We're going to need them anyways. Even if she wants to reduce the number of them, you're still going to be dragged into lawsuits. Just shoot for the moon. If there's legitimate people saying that we're bound by our lack of enforcement, enforce the damn thing. So my amendment specifically would say, would just add to his and say until after the November election and until the matter of enforcing the existing code is settled. And I specifically asked Venus, the chief of staff, prior to this meeting, and Andrea was on that email, to provide us some information for the basis that we can't enforce the existing code, where she's getting that from. And she said, oh, I'll get that to you. I haven't seen anything. So I'm still waiting.
She addressed that in the discussion, Kevin.
In a very general sense. We asked for some examples of
Well, we were trying to work on getting the council member present to you, so I'm happy to get you additional info, but let's not mislead what actually is going on.
Well, she said she was going to offer us something. If we can get that.
You had her for 30 minutes and you didn't mention that, so I find it disingenuous that you're bringing it up now.
Well, I hit her up with that before the meeting, and she was bringing that. So.
I added one extra point to your amendment on so Kevin, you okay with the extra point I just added?
I mean, it's a shit sandwich with chili pepper on top.
And he still doesn't allow us to comment if anything does get docketed.
She's going to docket it without us.
Andrea?
Then just take this. Okay, you're right. This motion's on the floor. We have to vote for it. Tracy, call the roll.
I'm just trying to write out the complete motion right now. But anyways, okay.
Tracy, let me help you with that. Move to
No, I think I
table
got
any
it. So
motion supporting any
Can you just
presentation, and then go to 1, after the November election, to settlement of law, or clarification of law, reinforcement of existing code, and 3, complete draft legislation presented in final form. That we're just not going to take a position whether we approve until after those 3 things have happened.
Can we make that stronger and say refuse to allow whole home rentals until
oh my God, guys, you're totally like just getting in the weeds here.
Kevin, why don't you type yours up then and send it, because I'll approve anything you do.
Okay, so either you need to withdraw, then Craig, you need to withdraw your motion.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, can we get something to vote on, because we're running at 8:20 and we still have the roundabout to go.
I'm typing right now.
Thank you.
Do I think it's possible that pasta could make my foot swell? Pasta could make my foot swell?
Can take this moment to get some water, go up, stretch your legs. I know it's been a long meeting and we have just a little bit more to go. I promise I'm still going to do my best to get everyone out of here by 9 o'clock.
While Kevin's typing, this is Anthony. I wanted to thank everybody in the subcommittee for the STVRs to help us out, including our community members. It was a learning experience, I think, for all of us. And although we drafted some recommendations that seem to be being kind of overridden today, I think that the work we're doing, and if we continue it, it'll come up with a great set of recommendations for the full board. We're all very careful and considerate of everybody's opinions and all sides of the issue. So thank you all.
I spit out something there. That's my motion.
Okay,
Right,
I'm going to read it. The OBPB refuses to support the MOU or anything permitting whole home rentals until the existing code enforceability is settled and until the mayoral election and until the communities are a seat at the table with competing interests such as vacation platforms.
Hey, can you put that in like that to everyone? Because I think it just went to you.
Oh, sorry. I'll do that.
I got it.
Okay. I just don't want her to see this as a indecisive. I think it's pretty clear that people are very much opposed to this unless they have no other choice. So let's figure that out. The only people I know that support vacation rental whole homes offsite are the people that own them.
So now the motion is here. Do I have any discussion on the motion? Please no one second it until we get some discussion.
I'll second the motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay.
I think it's exactly what Craig said. So
okay, thank you. So then let's just call the roll. We need to
Can somebody mute their phone? I don't know who's on. I can't hear anything.
I got it. Call the roll.
Okay. Anthony.
Aye.
Andrea.
Yeah,
Andrew,
Aye.
Greg, Chris,
I hate to say it, but I oppose. I think there needs to be a little bit more discussion.
Derek,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Jane,
Aye.
Tom,
I think that was an aye.
thank you. Jenna,
Aye.
Kevin. I assume Kevin's going to vote for his own motion. All right. Nicole,
I agree that we need to see a complete proposal, so aye.
Newman, Richard,
Aye.
Virginia.
Aye.
I vote aye. Passes.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay. Stephen, do I still have you? Stephen? He's in the chat right now. Sorry, let me go.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, Stephen, we can hear you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So if you want to give a little introduction of who you are, and then you can go ahead and share your screen. It is the third button from the left under your picture. We can see you too now.
Okay. So thank you for having me. Board and community member. I'm a civil engineer, capital improvement. We just changed our name, Engineering and Capital Improvements, and the project manager of the ADA Southwest Group 3E West Point Loma project, which consists of two projects, or two pieces. One, West Point Loma Street roundabout, and the other is West Point Loma Boulevard. Most interest to you guys is the West Point Loma and Bacon Street. And this idea came about in, looks like 2015, and it was brought forward to council in early 2016 by the community. And then Lori Zaff, the council supported it, and Lori Zaff authored a letter authorizing or directing the deputy director at transportation to seek funding. And so that's the idea of how this was born. And so since it's
I also have your presentation pulled up, Stephen, if it would be easier for me to share my screen.
I'm just trying to get to I can't quite get to the next slide.
Oh, we are not seeing your screen. So what slide are you on? Let me go ahead and take over those controls.
Okay. So go to slide 3.
Slide 3? Okay.
Yeah. So just a little bit of how it works is it provides safety for pedestrians as all the crosswalks are moved back from the yield line or lines. And so the cars or vehicle drivers deal with one thing at a time, which is first the pedestrians, and then they creep up to the yield line and prepare to enter the roundabout. And the traffic flows by a series of curves and narrowing so that all the traffic gets into a single file, including bikes, and travels through the roundabout. And So then the next slide is the queue. One of the things that the roundabout does to reduce the amount of queuing at the intersection. And so right now, with always stops at that intersection, there's about a 35-second delay per car. And there's each one of those blue rectangles is a car waiting at the peak hour. And how the roundabout would reduce that delay to about a 7-second delay, and it looks like you'd only have about 4 cars queued at that section. Let's see. The next slide is there's some brand new roundabouts on Springview Drive over in East San Diego. I was actually the project manager for the construction of that. The road has got only like 4,080 T. It's a residential area, and they are working beautifully. And the other ones are the La Jolla Boulevard roundabouts, which handle about 16,000 cars a day. And our roundabout here is about 13,000 cars a day. So it's kind of right in the middle if you wanted to see how a roundabout works. And then second to lastly, this is an engineering drawing. I don't know how to zoom up on it, but this is what the actual engineering drawings look like as far as all the striping and signing and walkways and island cut-throughs. How a pedestrian would cross would be to cross at these continental crosswalk. There is a rapid flashing beacon. So you push a button and it warns the approaching drivers, and they slow down or stop for you, then you cross. And so you can cross at each of the 4 quadrants, and also cut through the triangular island, much how you cut through now. So from a scheduling standpoint, also just one more, this project also includes the intersection of an ADA walkway at the intersection of and West Point Loma Boulevard. Can't quite get to that slide, but I'll keep trying.
It's up. You're good to go. Okay.
So at Nimitz, you start at right across from Street, and there's a bus stop. So this is Nimitz running north-south, and West Point Loma is running east-west. And coming in here, there's a bus stop that MTS has, and that's all not ADA compliant through there. So we're making an ADA path of travel to cross Nimitz, and then most of the sidewalk across the other island to the west is compliant, but is non-compliant and has been the subject of ADA complaints. So that, then you cross over the slip ramp from West Point Loma to Nimitz. You go up kind of a hillside, and we've carved an ADA compliant walkway up that hillside to join the existing sidewalk system at Seaside Drive. So we're just about finished with the plans. They should be ready to go out to bid in either late this month. We're hoping May at the latest, early September. The construction would start in early as spring, probably could be February, March of 21. And it would take, and it would complete at December 21/January 22. And that's about it. So I just wanted to brief you guys on what we're doing, and that the roundabout and the Nimitz are paired together as one project. And that's where we are. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Stephen. So we're going to open it up to the board first, then of course to community. Please either raise your hand or in the chat. Yeah.
I have two.
Don't worry. I was going to start with Tracy first because she is the chair of our transportation committee, and then can I go to you, Kevin?
Yeah, hi, Stephen. Thank you for bringing this back, or bringing this to the board. We've all been kind of curious about it since we've heard that it's happening. At least, you know, we didn't really, for myself, I actually didn't even know where this roundabout came from, because in our plan, it doesn't call for a roundabout at all. It calls for a four-way stop. So when I heard about it initially, I was a little surprised, but I appreciate you bringing the plans before the board, because there's a lot of times when stuff happens and they don't even come and present things to the board. So we're all kind of clueless when it happens. I did have a couple of concerns and questions that maybe you can answer.
Sure.
The initial study, traffic study for that intersection was done on a non-summer day in the middle of the week, and it was not done during rush hour traffic. And I just want to know, has anybody ever gone out there during the middle of the summer, during a Saturday, during an event at the park, you know, and experienced the high extreme level of traffic that tries to get out of Ocean Beach? Because it's not necessarily the traffic coming into Ocean Beach that backs up, it's the traffic that goes out of Ocean Beach. And I mean, I can tell you from a pure total experience from living on this corner that that traffic backs up all the way to Bacon and West Point Loma, and even past it on heavy traffic days. So I wanted to know if anybody has ever done a study outside of the, you know, everything is perfect traffic days and there's no traffic. So that's my first question.
Wednesday evenings would be a great time for that. Non-perfect traffic time, just saying, sorry.
The traffic studies are I didn't do the traffic study, but know about them. Traffic studies are usually done exactly as you said, on weekdays and not include Fridays, but and Saturdays. But we do take count and that traffic, the event traffic and holiday traffic and summertime traffic is accounted for. One of the things that's beneficial on this roundabout is nobody has to stop. People keep moving. So roundabouts are a lot more efficient than a four-way stop. So,
right.
So this will ease your concerns.
Okay, so that leads to my next concern is, like I said, it's not necessarily the traffic coming into Ocean Beach or to the park that's the big concern. It's the traffic that exits this area. So any traffic going east, right? So the light at Sunset Cliffs and West Point Loma is so incredibly poorly timed that it is going to back up something fierce. So I want some reassurance that once this roundabout gets implemented, that light will be addressed.
This roundabout will ease the queuing. Will it ease it to the extent that you're speaking? Nobody really knows until it's built and operating, and we see how it operates. It will alleviate to some the existing queuing that's there.
Okay, well, I'm apprehensive. I mean, I know a lot of residents who live here, and we absolutely understand how backed up it gets, and it could be 100% related to the light at Sunset Cliffs in West Point Loma, but I'm a little apprehensive. And then the last concern I had is when this letter came out, I only know of one resident who actually got the letter stating that this was a plan. And, you know, when we contacted, I had Andrea reach out, and I don't know if she reached out to you or somebody else, but the excuse was, well, some people throw away their mail. Well, the problem is, Stephen, is that I spoke to numerous residents who live of the vicinity. I've even spoke to the businesses in the vicinity, and nobody received this notice. So for some reason, the only person who received this notice is my next door neighbor, which I thought was really odd. And then you also mentioned that you CC'd the Ocean Beach Planning Board, the Peninsula Planning Board, and nobody has gotten this letter. So I'm kind of wondering, like, where the breakdown was and what happened here.
Well, we did too. The Peninsula did get the letter. Actually, they've contacted me, and they're up next to have this presentation because they're in the Nimitz and West Point Loma portion of the project. We did 2 mailings. We looked up all the owners, which may not live in the area, and we did a mailing to them. We worked with the PIO and the Alec Phillip and the council office to work on the content of the letter and who it should go to. And then we heard the news that you just stated. So we did a second mailing to every address within 300-foot radius of both of these projects and mailed them out. So we had 2 mailings. Every renter, every owner had a mailing to them.
Yeah, I think there's something going on there because, I mean, like I said, both of my next door neighbors did not get them, and they own their properties. The businesses in the corners on all 4 corners never got this notice. I mean, I don't know if somebody, I mean, really, I don't know if somebody's embezzling money like at the post office or if the post office is dropping the ball, but somebody dropped the ball because nobody in this area got any notice. And that was after 2 mailings.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there that we're all kind of a little disappointed that we didn't get any notice.
As am I. So your question is concerning, and I will check into it.
Thank you. All right, I think I've complained enough.
No, thank you. And Stephen, it is really important because notices will go out then of construction. And that is obviously really important that everyone gets construction notices that lives around there. So please do look into that for us, and please, and I will follow up with you about when that's resolved so we can make sure everyone's properly noticed when this actually does move into the construction phase, because that would be terrible for all of our communities to wake up one day.
Right. Well, also, as the contractor bid and the contractor that's selected is awarded the contract, they will also go and do door and I will definitely check in to because it's very concerning, and seems like nobody should have to worry about this. So I apologize on behalf of the city staff, and I will dig into it and figure it out.
Thank you. Kevin, so everyone from the board who wants to speak on this, please let me know. And so Kevin, I know you said something, you tried to sneak in before Tracy. So I'll give you the floor, and then please board members, let me know if you want to speak. And I'm going to public comment, and then we'll wrap up the item.
Okay, I'm wondering if the city is looking at the other intersections along West Point Loma. Tracy kind of mentioned the, why are we fixing this when the bottleneck is elsewhere? But I think my concern more is just having a singular one of these, especially in an area that's so tourist heavy. It just seems like a recipe for disaster. These seem to work better in groups. You see the first one, it catches you by surprise, and then you get the hang of it. I'm wondering if any other locations are being considered.
I think that there's a traffic circle. I remember the other end of Bacon Street block to, and Bacon is being looked at as trying to convert to a bike boulevard. And I think there's traffic circle going in there. And as far as the other segments of the road, this actually started out as an ADA compliance issue, and so that's kind of why it's isolated. Each intersection's isolated because they were selected based on ADA solving ADA complaints.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so just then to clarify, we don't have any roundabouts that are currently being considered then?
Not
along that corridor.
There's a mini circle on Bacon being not along West Point Loma.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have any more board member comments? Jane?
I grew up in Boston where we had roundabouts, except we called them rotaries. And there was a rotary in my neighborhood. When you went to Cape Cod, there was a rotary before the bridge. There was a rotary before you did the right-hand turn to get onto the Cape. So I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Any more board comment? Derek?
Yeah, I lived in Germany for 5 years, so I appreciate the roundabout as well. But just echoing what other people say, it seems like an odd choice for a place to put it because you're not getting a lot of traffic that goes up into the park there and whatnot. These things do need to happen, I think, in multiple sets. So if this is a pilot program for other ones within OB, then great. But just like Tracy's saying, for living up on Sunset Cliffs, she gets the traffic that backs up that way. I get the traffic that backs up this way. I think we need to understand that Sunset Cliffs and Voltaire and that area, that's the problem area, so it just seems like an odd space to be addressing. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Derek. Oh, I was unmuted. Any more board comments? Okay, I'm going to switch over now to public comment. And Nicole, is that you with everything already unmuted? You can go. Nicole is also on our transportation committee. Thank you. Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for coming and presenting this. This is actually very exciting and very supportive of this. For those of you guys, this is Bacon Boulevard is a bicycle boulevard as stated in our community plan. So that's part of the reason why this intersection was chosen 10 years ago. We've been talking about it for about 10 years. So it is exciting to see it come to fruition. And I think it is going to be a benefit to our traffic flow in and out of that park, as we see with the traffic delays. And just to note, the Traffic Transportation Subcommittee has talked about future funding, future advocating for these continuations on Cable as well as Abbott on West Point Loma. So, and then the city is looking for some on Bacon to support that bike boulevard along there. So I completely support this effort, and I'm super excited to see some of the, that it's combined with some improvements at Nimitz and West Point Loma as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I have Bill waiting to make a public comment.
Yeah, this is Bill Orvis. Thanks for coming and being here. I live just on that corner, and just to kind of clarify the big concern we have, essentially that the way the intersection is now on normal weekends, that intersection gets impacted already, and because of the traffic light at West Point Loma and Sunset Cliffs. Now I understand that the roundabout is going to allow people to queue up faster, which seems counterintuitive because all you're doing is just impacting that roundabout to the point where I'm worried that I won't be able to get in to Ocean Beach. So essentially that everybody would be waiting inside the roundabout coming out of the park or coming from the beach, and I'm coming in at that intersection, and now I can't even get to into the roundabout because people are waiting for the light at West Point Loma and Sunset Cliff to change. So there's also a long queue typically on weekends at Cable and West Point Loma. So that intersection might actually be better for than where we're talking about now. So anyways, that's the big concern. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, I do echo those concerns since it is just a one-lane roundabout as well. I know it probably isn't feasible to have a two-lane roundabout there. That has gone onto my mind. I do have another comment here about the Nimitz West Point Loma Boulevard. Making the right turn onto West Point Loma Boulevard from Nimitz. We just have a bike lane there. And everyone just uses it as a glorified right-hand turn lane. So it would be nice to actually make that a legitimate right-hand turn lane as opposed to just the bike lane that does exist right now.
Okay.
It is next to kind of a grassy area and a park. So maybe we can borrow some land from there. Anyways, I know it's something I think about every time I'm getting off the 8, every time I'm coming back over the bridge and turning onto West Point Loma, to use STVRs to get in. So, I don't ever want to get ticketed for doing the thing that we all do. Thank you, Beth, for that comment. I have a couple more comments here from Denise. She's glad to see the ADA issues are being addressed. However, she's still concerned about pedestrian safety, especially for our neighbors who are visually impaired. So just making sure that all of our ADA sites are covered and that pedestrian safety is one of the #1 priorities. I think that's the reason we also wanted the roundabout, because that intersection is highly unsafe for pedestrians as of now. I don't think the crosswalks are fully painted out. So I hear a lot of the community, talking about that light. I would say it's an issue that needs to be fixed now. I would urge everyone to let's take community action on this and get into contact with our council member offices, and then as well as transportation and stormwater, and see if we can't make a fuss about that light timing. That can be something fixed a little bit quicker and sooner. I would also copy the mayor's office on that. So that would be my instruction for everyone after this, because this is an information item, not an action item. So since we are concerned, this is clearly an issue that we need to bring to people's attention. Let's start making a little bit noise about that. And we can also tie it in to our discussion about left-hand turn lights on, or left arrows, in the next transportation committee. But thank you, Stephen, so much. I have something from Kevin. Kevin, did you want to speak, or do any other board members or public want to make questions or comments to Stephen while he's here about the roundabout? Because this might be our only chance to take it to have our further comments considered for the design period.
I don't think my comments are within the scope, so I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo Tracy's concern about the outbound traffic. Leaving Ocean Beach might be an issue that we'd want to look at. How will that affect traffic in the roundabout? If traffic backs up to the point that will it affect people's ability to come in to Ocean Beach if the egress is backed up?
Yeah, definitely have to look at the timing. I'll make a note of it. It's come up several times here, and I can get a hold of our group and maybe send someone out and look at the timing, see if it's.
And it is the whole string of lights from West Point Loma at Sunset Cliffs, then continuing down Sunset Cliffs up until the 8. because everyone's making that left-hand turn to get onto the 8 or onto SeaWorld Drive to get onto the 5. So it is that whole string of lights and that timing for it. And did I miss a
I'll mention it or send an email tomorrow to the Signal senior, Steve Selnicker, and we'll see what he can do there and make it a little more efficient for you.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, do we have any more comments, questions, concerns about the roundabout? Okay, thank you so much for your time, Stephen. Sorry for all the technical difficulties, but we're glad we got you here and we're glad you hung around for everything. Thank you.
You guys have very interesting discussions.
Everyone always says that after hanging out on our meetings. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to run in here. I guess, is Craig still here? I can give your treasurer's report if not.
I'm still here.
Thanks for hanging in.
Treasurer's report, bank balance, $1,382.13.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to quickly run mine. You have a couple of meetings.
Hey, Craig, can you repeat that? You cut out.
1,382.13.
Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so tomorrow morning, tomorrow, the City Council will be holding a special meeting on the 101 Ash Street property. So if you're up to date, if you've been following that, they are having a special meeting tomorrow morning if you want to go and listen in. I've been told by planning that complete communities will not be docketed until after the August recess. I know, so please, keep that on your radar. Keep telling everyone you know about it. Let's keep making noise because I think the noise is really what pushed it back. And then 2 things I'm going to agendize for next month. Midway, the Midway Planning Group has asked to come and speak with us about their proposed 30-foot height limit. So I'm going to agendize that. And then I think it's time we take up the parking discussion again. The town council has weighed in heavily. There seems to be a lot of will to get something done. So I want us to take up the parking issue again. That is it from my chair's report. Do we have a vice chair's report, Kevin?
There will not be a project review committee meeting this month, but there will be next month. That's all I got.
Thank you, Kevin. Do we have any other subcommittee reports? Awesome. Has anyone did anyone make it to their meetings last month? Women's Club, Historical Committee.
I have a question on subcommittees.
Sorry. Let's give her report first, and then we'll ask the question, Kevin. Yep. Jane?
We had a historical board meeting, and there'll be no general meetings. We're hoping that maybe in October, but we'll have to wait and see.
We don't have any place to be.
Yeah. The church doesn't want gatherings of more than 10.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, yeah, hope you guys can get back online soon. Does anyone else, or do we have, what was your question about subcommittees?
I guess the vacation rental subcommittee is still active. Are we meeting? I don't even know what we'd be talking about at this point.
Right, I'm going to leave that to you as the chair.
Okay.
Oh, muted. Can we? I know we expanded it further until something else comes up. And kind of by our motion, it seems like we don't want to take a stance on anything until everything is cleared up about what litigation could possibly be pending if we try to restrict short-term vacation rentals in residential zones. So I would direct Anthony to maybe not hold a meeting then until we do get that clarification, since that was the motion the board did make.
That was my thought as well. Thank you.
Thank you. While I'm talking to Anthony, anything from NACAC?
No, our meeting is the next Airport Noise Committee meeting is later on this month.
Awesome. Tracy, do we have anything from Arts and Culture?
Not that I can remember. I'm pretty bumped out right now, so I'll pass.
Okay, great. Virginia, do we have anything from the Forestry Committee or Forestry? Let me unmute you. Sorry. There you go. You're unmuted.
All right. Our last meeting was canceled at the last minute, so no, nothing new.
That's too bad. Okay. Do we have any other reports? Nicole, anything from CDC? Trying to remember where everyone is.
Nope, still moving forward with the redesign for Veterans Plaza. So looking forward to updating you all on that when at the appropriate time, I guess.
Okay, cool. Any other reports? Any other topics that anyone wants to request for the agenda? Again, please email me. Oh, right. Sorry, Mandy. I know Peninsula met. Do you want to give us an update?
Oh yeah. Sorry, it's getting late. Fred Cosmo is the new chair of the Peninsula Community Planning Board. So he's the chair, and then the first chair is David Dick, and the second chair is Brad Heron. And Corla is still the treasurer, as well as Sarah is still the secretary as well. So I do want to let everyone know that I am the new chair of the Parks and the Traffic Transportation chair, as well as the co-chair of the Environmental Committee, along with Eva Schmidt. So the first transportation meeting that I will be the chair of is coming up on August 11th at 6 p.m. And the Zoom meeting will need to be, you will need to pre-register to participate in that meeting. So if you would like to participate, again, that's coming up on August 11th. Thank you.
Andy, how are you handling people being on that committee? Because I sent you something, but I'm not sure if it was acceptable or not. Are you? I mean, it's something I want to join. So.
Oh yes, and I definitely plan to have you join. I have received clarification. My understanding is it's just basically the chairs who approve, and Tracy, based on your application or your resume, I believe you're more than qualified to participate. So I look forward to having you participate as a committee member. We just need to officially vote you in at the next meeting. That would be the requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Love to see the collaboration and, making the peninsula a beautiful, better, lovely place for all residents. This should be our goals of the planning board residents. Thank you, guys. It is 9:02. I am going to a motion to adjourn. Thanks for holding in there. Thanks for being part of this discussion, and thanks for trying to move this forward. I know we don't currently agree with a lot of the decisions being made from the top down, but I sincerely appreciate that this board is always open to discussing everything. So thank you, guys, and have a great rest of your week. Don't let the drum circles keep you up too late tonight. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Okay.